The pregnancy test trembled in my hands as two pink lines emerged, clear as day. After months of trying, this should have been our moment of triumph. Instead, as I stood in our designer bathroom, dread pooled in my stomach. I already knew how Ryan would react. "Olivia, how much longer are you going to be in there? We're going to be late for the Henderson meeting." I took a deep breath, tucking the test into my pocket. I checked my reflection. My olive complexion looked paler than usual, but my dark hair was perfectly styled. My business attire immaculate. No one looking at me would guess the turmoil inside. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." "Coming," I called, my voice impressively steady. I found Ryan in our sleek living room scrolling through his phone, not even bothering to look up as I entered. That was typical these days. 3 years of marriage, and sometimes I wondered if he even saw me anymore. "The Henderson presentation is ready," I said, hovering by the doorway. "But Ryan, can we talk for a minute? It's important." He sighed, glancing at his watch. "Can it wait until tonight? We need to nail this account." "It's important," I repeated, my hand unconsciously moving to my stomach. Something in my tone must have gotten through. He set his phone down, finally looking at me with those piercing blue eyes that had once made my heart race. Now, they just made me nervous. "I'm pregnant," I said simply, pulling the test from my pocket. The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Ryan's face went through a series of emotions: shock, disbelief, and then anger. "That's impossible," he finally said, his voice cold. "We've been trying for over a year with no success." "The doctor said—" "Well, the doctor was wrong," I countered, a flicker of hope still alive that he might move past the shock and share my joy. "It happened, Ryan. We're going to have a baby." Ryan stood, pacing our minimalist living room, running his hands through his perfect hair. "This doesn't make sense, Olivia. The timing is all wrong. We're about to launch the new marketing campaign. Horizon is on the verge of its biggest quarter ever. I know the timing isn't perfect, but—" "Perfect?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "It's a disaster. We can't have a baby now. It would derail everything we've worked for." His words hit me like a physical blow. "Everything we've worked for?" "Ryan, I gave up my position at Stellar Marketing to support your career. I've been handling all of Horizon's marketing campaigns from behind the scenes while you take the credit." Ryan's face darkened. "That was your choice. Nobody forced you to step back." "Because you convinced me we were building something together." My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "And now we're actually creating something together, a family. And you're acting like it's the end of the world." Ryan moved to the bar cart in the corner, pouring himself a drink despite the early hour. "Olivia, be reasonable. We can't do this right now. Maybe in a couple of years, when the company is more stable." I stared at him, suddenly seeing with perfect clarity what I'd been avoiding for years. "The company will never be stable enough for you, will it? There will always be another milestone, another goal, another reason to put our life on hold." Ryan set his glass down with more force than necessary. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm having this baby, Ryan, with or without your support." His eyes narrowed. "Don't threaten me, Olivia. It's not a threat. It's a decision." My voice was steadier than I felt. "I want this child. I thought you would too." Ryan laughed again, that same humorless sound. "Well, you thought wrong. I never wanted kids, Olivia. I just went along with it because it seemed important to you. And frankly, I never thought it would happen." The admission knocked the breath from my lungs. "You? What? You've been lying to me for 3 years? Watching me chart temperatures and take vitamins and cry every month when the test was negative? all while never wanting a child? Ryan at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. I thought we had more time, that you'd eventually realize how disruptive a child would be to our lifestyle. Our lifestyle? I echoed, feeling sick. You mean your lifestyle, your career, your ambitions? Our ambitions, he corrected sharply. Don't act like you haven't benefited from my success. The house, the cars, the vacations. Things, I interrupted. All you're talking about are things, Ryan. What about love? Partnership? A family? He sighed, looking at me with something like pity. If that's what you want, then maybe you're with the wrong person. The words hung in the air between us, a truth I'd been avoiding for too long. Maybe I am, I whispered. Ryan checked his watch again, ever the businessman. Look, we need to get to this meeting. We can discuss this tonight. Just don't tell anyone yet, all right? Let's keep this between us until we figure it out. I nodded mechanically, grabbing my portfolio. We drove to the client meeting in silence, and I performed perfectly, presenting the marketing strategy I'd developed while Ryan took the credit. It was a familiar dance, one I'd perfected over the years, but all I could think about was the tiny life growing inside me, and the man beside me who wanted nothing to do with it. That night, Ryan came home late, reeking of expensive scotch. I was sitting in the dark living room, having spent hours weighing my options. I thought you'd be asleep, he said, loosening his tie. We need to talk, I replied. Ryan sighed, dropping into the armchair across from me. Look, I've been thinking about our situation. Maybe we could compromise. Hope flickered briefly. Compromise how? You could take care of this. He gestured vaguely toward my stomach. And we can revisit the idea in a couple of years, when the timing is better. It took me a moment to understand what he was suggesting. You want me to get an abortion? Ryan winced at the word. I'm just being practical, Olivia. This isn't the right time. And if I don't? I challenged. His expression hardened. Then you're on your own. I never signed up to be a father, and I won't be forced into it. The last thread of hope snapped. You never signed up to be a husband either, apparently. At least not in any way that matters. Ryan stood, his patience visibly wearing thin. I won't be manipulated into this, Olivia. Make your choice. I looked at this stranger wearing my husband's face and made the easiest decision of my life. I already have. The next morning, I waited until Ryan left for work. Then I packed 2 suitcases with my essentials, called my parents, and walked out of the modern glass house that had never really felt like a home. As I drove away, I didn't look back. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. My child and I deserved better than Ryan Walsh could ever give us. My parents' house in the suburbs was exactly as I remembered. Modest, warm, and filled with the smell of my mother's cooking. As I pulled into the driveway, Eleanor and Daniel Chen rushed out to meet me, their faces etched with concern. Olivia, my mother said, pulling me into a hug. What's happened? Your call had us so worried. I'd managed to hold it together during the drive, but in my mother's arms, the tears finally came. Ryan and I are over, Mom, and I'm pregnant. My father's face darkened as he took my suitcases. That man, he muttered, shaking his head. Come inside, my mother urged, leading me toward the house. You can tell us everything when you're ready. That night, as we sat around the kitchen table I'd grown up with, I told them everything. Ryan's reaction, his ultimatum, my decision to leave. I know it seems sudden, I said, pushing my food around my plate, but I think our marriage has been over for a long time. I just didn't want to see it. My father, always practical, leaned forward. What's your plan, Olivia? You're welcome to stay here as long as you need. But what about your future? Your career? It was a fair question. I'd put my own ambitions on hold for Ryan, working behind the scenes on his company's campaigns without official recognition. Now I had nothing. No job, no portfolio I could claim as my own, and a baby on the way. I don't know yet, I admitted, but I have some savings, and I'm good at what I do. I'll figure it out. My mother reached across the table, squeezing my hand. You always do, sweetheart, and you're not alone. The next morning, I woke to a series of text messages from Ryan, ranging from angry demands to know where I was to half-hearted apologies. I read them all but responded to none. That chapter of my life was closed. Instead, I called my old friend Zoe Parker, who owned Parkside Coffee in downtown Westlake. We'd stayed in touch over the years, despite Ryan's subtle efforts to distance me from my old friends. "Olivia?" Zoe answered, surprise evident in her voice. "Is everything okay? You never call during business hours." "Actually, no," I replied honestly. "Everything's kind of fallen apart. Ryan and I are done. I'm pregnant and I need a job. I was wondering if you might need any help at the coffee shop while I figure things out." There was a moment of silence, then Zoe's warm laugh. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Well, when you decide to make changes, you don't do it halfway, do you? Come by tomorrow morning. I can't pay much, but there's definitely a place for you here. Relief washed over me. Thank you, Zoe. I mean it. What are friends for, and... Olivia? I'm proud of you. It takes courage to start over. As I hung up, my hand drifted to my still flat stomach. Just you and me now, little one, I whispered. But we're going to be okay. I had no idea then how true those words would prove to be, or how the journey ahead would transform both our lives in ways I could never have imagined. The next few weeks passed in a blur of adjustment. Working at Parkside Coffee was nothing like my corporate marketing career. It was exhausting in an entirely different way. By the end of each shift, my feet ached and my back throbbed, but there was something satisfying about the simplicity of it. I made coffee, I served customers, I went home. No office politics, no pretense, no walking on eggshells around Ryan's ego. My first prenatal appointment brought both relief and a new wave of emotions. Seeing that tiny heartbeat on the ultrasound screen, hearing the doctor confirm that everything looked healthy, it made my decision feel right, even as it highlighted the reality that I was doing this alone. "Would you like to know the sex?" the doctor asked, smiling kindly. I hesitated only briefly. Yes, I would. "It's a girl," she said, pointing to the screen. "Congratulations. A daughter." The knowledge settled in my chest, warm and certain. On the drive back to my parents' house, I found myself talking to her. "We're going to be just fine, Lily," I said, the name coming to me suddenly. "You and me against the world." Ryan continued his campaign of alternating anger and manipulation in the weeks that followed. When I finally agreed to meet him to discuss divorce proceedings, he showed up at the neutral coffee shop, not Zoe's. I wouldn't give him access to my safe space, with a practiced expression of concern. "You look tired," he said instead of hello, his gaze critical as he took in my simple attire and the shadows under my eyes. "Working on your feet all day will do that," I replied evenly. "But I'm fine. More than fine, actually." Ryan scoffed. "Serving coffee? Come on, Olivia. This is beneath you. Come home. We can work this out." "There's nothing to work out. I've already filed for divorce." I slid the papers across the table. "My lawyer says it should be straightforward since we don't have children. Yet, and the house is in your name." His jaw tightened at the mention of children. "And the pregnancy?" "My daughter is doing well, thank you for asking." I emphasized the word daughter, watching him flinch. "Due in about 6 months." Ryan's face darkened. So you're really going through with this? Did you think I wouldn't? I challenged. He leaned back, that calculating look I knew so well, settling over his features. You know, I can make this difficult for you. The prenup you signed was in case of infidelity or abandonment. I finished for him. Neither of which apply here. I left because you gave me an ultimatum to choose. Between my husband and my child, no court would view that favorably. Ryan's surprise was evident. He hadn't expected me to know the details of the document I'd signed, or to have already consulted a lawyer. For years, he'd handled all our legal and financial matters, keeping me dependent and uninformed. Those days were over. Fine, he snapped, grabbing the papers. I'll have my lawyer review these. As he stood to leave, he paused, looking down at me with a mixture of anger and something almost like regret. You're making a mistake, Olivia. You'll never find another situation like what we had. I met his gaze steadily. That's exactly what I'm counting on. After he left, I sat for a long time, my hand resting on my barely there bump. The encounter had been draining, but I felt stronger than I had in months. I'd faced Ryan and stood my ground. It was a small victory, but an important one. That victory was short-lived, however. Just 3 days later, as my shift at Parkside was ending, a sharp pain tore through my abdomen. I gasped, clutching the counter for support. Olivia? Zoe's alarmed voice seemed to come from far away. What's wrong? I looked down in horror, to see a small stain of blood spreading on my jeans. The baby, I whispered. Something's wrong with the baby. The next hours were a blur of emergency rooms, concerned faces, and the terrifying phrase, threatened miscarriage. I lay on the hospital bed, tears streaming silently down my face as doctors moved around me, checking monitors and speaking in hushed tones. Please, I begged whoever might be listening, please don't take her from me. She's all I have. My mother sat beside me, holding my hand so tightly it hurt. She's a fighter, Olivia, just like her mother. She'll hold on. When the doctor finally returned with news, I held my breath, preparing for the worst. The bleeding has stopped, she said gently, and we're still detecting a strong heartbeat. You're not out of the woods yet, but things look promising. Relief crashed over me like a wave. So she's okay? Lily's okay? The doctor smiled. Lily, is it? Well, Lily seems determined to stay put, but you'll need to take it very easy for the next few weeks. Bed rest would be ideal. Bed rest. No work, no income. The practical implications hit me even as I nodded my understanding. Don't worry about the coffee shop, Zoe said later, as if reading my mind. Your job will be waiting when you're ready to come back. And you'll stay with us, of course, my mother added. We'll take care of everything. As my parents helped me from the hospital to the car, I was overwhelmed by gratitude for their support and by the stark realization of how differently this might have played out if I'd stayed with Ryan. Would he have rushed to the hospital, held my hand, prayed alongside me for our daughter's life? Somehow, I couldn't picture it. And that certainty, painful as it was, confirmed that I'd made the right choice in leaving. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom under strict orders, not to move, I made another promise to Lily. We survived today, I whispered, my hand gently cradling my stomach. And we're going to keep surviving. Every day, getting stronger. I promise you'll never doubt that you're loved and wanted, not for a single moment of your life. It was a promise I intended to keep, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The weeks of bed rest were both a blessing and a curse. Physically, I recovered. The bleeding stopped completely, and each checkup showed Lily growing right on schedule. Mentally, however, I struggled with the enforced inactivity and mounting financial concerns. My parents were generous beyond measure, covering my medical expenses and daily needs without complaint. But at 32, depending so completely on them felt like failure. I'd gone from a successful career and independent life to what felt like regression to adolescence, all in the span of a few months. It was during this period of forced stillness that Marcus Taylor reached out. My former boss at Stellar Marketing had been something of a mentor to me before I'd left to support Ryan's career. His name on my phone screen was an unexpected surprise. Olivia Chen. His warm voice filled my bedroom. It's been far too long. Marcus, I replied, genuine pleasure in my tone. How did you know to call? He chuckled. Small industry, smaller town. Word gets around. I heard you might be back on the job market soon, and I wanted to be first in line. My heart sank. That's actually complicated right now. I'm pregnant, on bed rest, and in the middle of a divorce. Ah, Marcus said, without missing a beat. Congratulations on the pregnancy, condolences on the divorce, and best wishes for your recovery. None of which changes my reason for calling. It doesn't? I asked, confused. Olivia, you were the best marketing strategist I've ever worked with. Your campaigns for Stellar were innovative, effective, and years ahead of their time. I've been keeping tabs on Horizon's work, which has your fingerprints all over it, even if your name isn't on it. I felt a flush of pride at his recognition. That's kind of you to say, but... No buts, he interrupted gently. I have a proposition. Stellar is expanding, and I need a new director of marketing, someone who can work from home while needed, join us in the office when ready, and bring fresh perspective to our campaigns. I sat up straighter, scarcely daring to hope. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you your career back, Marcus corrected, with better terms than you had before. Because frankly, seeing what you did for Horizon from behind the scenes, I'd be a fool not to snap you up. Tears pricked my eyes. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Marcus replied simply. Take a few days if you need to think it over. But Olivia, you deserve this. Don't let whatever happened with Ryan make you doubt your value. After we hung up, I sat staring at the phone, a mixture of emotions swirling through me. Hope, validation, the first stirrings of renewed confidence. Marcus's offer wasn't just a job, it was recognition of my worth, something Ryan had systematically undermined for years. That night, I made a decision. I would accept Marcus's offer, but I would do more than that. I would reclaim everything Ryan had taken from me. My professional identity, my confidence, my independence. And I would build something new and better, for myself and for Lily. The path forward wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges balancing new motherhood with a demanding career. There would be financial hurdles and emotional scars to overcome. But for the first time since seeing those 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test, I felt something beyond determination. I felt possibility. Ready for a new chapter, Lily? I whispered, feeling a flutter of movement in response. I smiled, taking it as agreement. Me too, little one. Me too. I had no idea then how dramatically that new chapter would unfold, or how it would eventually bring Ryan Walsh back into my life, in a way neither of us could have possibly anticipated. 4 weeks of bed rest passed with excruciating slowness. Each day blended into the next as I worked remotely for Stellar Marketing, my laptop balanced awkwardly on my growing belly. My bedroom had transformed into a makeshift office, notebooks stacked on the nightstand, marketing reports scattered across the duvet, and my phone constantly buzzing with emails and messages from Marcus and the team. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, Ryan had insisted I couldn't handle a high-powered career while pursuing parenthood. Now here I was, creating an entire marketing campaign from my childhood bed, while literally growing a human being. My body was accomplishing the impossible, while my mind refused to slow down. Olivia, you need to rest, my mother scolded, appearing in the doorway with a steaming mug of ginger tea. Her face was pinched with concern as she surveyed the explosion of work materials surrounding me. "I am resting," I protested, gesturing to my supine position. "Technically, I haven't left this bed in days." Eleanor shook her head, setting the tea down carefully among my papers. "Your body might be resting, but your mind is racing. This can't be good for the baby." I softened at the worry in her voice. "The doctor said Lily's doing fine now, Mom. The bleeding has stopped completely." "Yeah." "Yes, and we want to keep it that way." She gathered a stack of printouts from beside me. "Marcus said you could take all the time you need. Why are you pushing yourself so hard?" It was a fair question, one I'd asked myself during the long, quiet nights when insomnia kept me company. The truth was complicated. "Because I need to prove I can do this," I finally admitted. To Ryan, to myself, to everyone who thinks a pregnant woman can't handle responsibility. My mother sat on the edge of the bed, her expression softening. "Oh, Olivia, you have nothing to prove to anyone, especially not to Ryan." "Don't I, though?" I set my laptop aside, giving her my full attention. "He left me because he thought a baby would derail everything we'd worked for. He thought I'd be diminished, less capable, less valuable with a child. And sometimes, in my darkest moments, I wonder if he's right." The admission cost me, bringing tears I'd been fighting for weeks. Eleanor took my hand, her grip firm and reassuring. "Listen to me. That man didn't leave because you would be diminished by motherhood. He left because he would be revealed by it." "What do you mean?" "Parenthood strips away pretenses. It shows you who you really are. Your strength, your weaknesses, your capacity for selfless love." She smiled sadly. "Ryan didn't fear you becoming less. He feared being exposed as inadequate himself." Her words resonated in a way nothing else had since that day in our bathroom with the pregnancy test. Ryan's rejection had never been about my limitations. It had been about his. "When you were little," my mother continued, "you never walked anywhere. You always ran full speed ahead, like you couldn't wait to see what was next. That's who you are, Olivia. Motherhood won't change that fundamental truth. It will just give you someone wonderful to run alongside." I leaned into her embrace, feeling some of the tension leave my body. "When did you get so wise?" She laughed, the sound warm and comforting. 32 years of watching you grow. Up. Now, drink your tea and try to relax. The world won't stop spinning if you take an afternoon off." After she left, I closed my laptop, surprising myself with the decision. Maybe one afternoon of truly resting wouldn't derail my career comeback. As I sipped the ginger tea, I felt Lily move, a definite kick now, not just the butterfly flutters of previous weeks. "You agree with Grandma, don't you?" I murmured, placing my hand where I'd felt the movement. "All right, message received. We'll take a break." But the reprieve was short-lived. The next morning, my phone rang with a call from Marcus that would change everything once again. "Olivia, I hope I'm not disturbing your rest," he began, his normally confident voice hesitant. "Not at all," I assured him. "What's up?" "Something's happened that you should know about." He paused, and I could picture him leaning forward in his ergonomic chair, brow furrowed. Horizon Technologies has approached Stellar about a potential acquisition. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. "Acquisition? You mean Ryan's company wants to buy Stellar?" "Not exactly. They want to merge the marketing divisions, with Horizon as the dominant partner." Marcus sighed. "Normally, I'd dismiss it outright. Stellar is doing well, and I value our independence. But their offer is substantial." My mind raced. If Horizon acquired Stellar's marketing division, Ryan would become my boss again. This time, officially. Everything I'd been building, the fresh start I'd created, would be compromised. "You're not seriously considering it, are you?" I couldn't keep the alarm from my voice. I have to, Olivia. The board is interested. But I wanted you to know first, given your history with Ryan. Marcus paused. If this goes through, would you want to stay? Would I? Could I work under Ryan's authority again after everything that had happened? The thought made my stomach turn. I don't know, I answered honestly. This is a lot to process. You don't need to decide anything now, Marcus assured me. The negotiations will take months and nothing may come of it. But I thought you deserved to know. After we hung up, I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts in turmoil. Just when I'd begun to feel secure in my new path, Ryan was threatening to derail it, whether he knew it or not. The coincidence seemed too perfect to be accidental. Had he discovered I was working for Stellar? Was this a calculated move to reassert control over my life? The questions spiraled until my father knocked on the door, pulling me from my dark thoughts. You have a visitor, Daniel said, his expression carefully neutral. Megan Foster says she works with Ryan at Horizon. My alarm must have shown on my face because he quickly added, I can tell her you're not up for company. No, I decided, curiosity overriding caution. I'll see her. Megan Foster was Ryan's right hand at Horizon, polished, efficient, and completely loyal to him as far as I knew. What could she possibly want with me? I struggled to sit up straighter, suddenly conscious of my appearance. My hair was pulled into a messy bun. I wore no makeup, and my oversized t-shirt did little to disguise my growing belly. Not exactly how I'd choose to face someone from my old life. Megan entered hesitantly, looking as pristine as I remembered in her tailored suit and immaculate blonde bob. But something was different. A tension around her eyes, a tightness to her smile. Olivia, she said, hovering awkwardly by the door. Thank you for seeing me. It's not like I could run away, I joked weakly, gesturing to my bedbound state. Please sit. She perched on the edge of the chair my mother usually occupied. I heard about your pregnancy. Congratulations. Thank you, I replied, wondering if Ryan had told her or if she'd heard through the grapevine. But somehow, I don't think you came all this way to discuss baby news. Megan looked down at her perfectly manicured hands. No, I didn't. She took a deep breath. I came to warn you about the Stellar acquisition. My breath caught. What about it? It's not what it seems. Her blue eyes met mine directly. Ryan found out you're working there. He's not interested in Stellar's marketing division. He's interested in forcing you out. The confirmation of my suspicions should have been devastating, but instead, I felt a strange calm settle over me. That sounds like Ryan. But why are you telling me this? I thought you were loyal to him. Something flashed across Megan's face. Pain, perhaps, or disappointment. I was. For years, I believed in his vision for Horizon. But lately, she shook her head. The way he's been acting since you left, the decisions he's making, they're erratic, vindictive. He's hurting the company. And you care about Horizon, I said, understanding dawning. I've given that company 5 years of my life, she confirmed. I won't watch Ryan destroy it because he can't handle being left. I studied her, trying to gauge her sincerity. What exactly is he planning? If the acquisition goes through, he'll dissolve your position immediately. He's told the board it's redundant, but... She hesitated. But we both know it's personal, I finished for her. Megan nodded. There's more. Horizon is facing a major PR crisis. That new app they launched? It has serious privacy issues. Users' personal data is being compromised, and Ryan is trying to cover it up rather than address it. I frowned. That's not just unethical, it's potentially illegal. Exactly, and when it blows up, not if, but when, Horizon's reputation will be destroyed. Megan looked genuinely distressed. Hundreds of people could lose their jobs, including me. The implications were clear. If the acquisition went through before the scandal broke, Stellar would be dragged down with Horizon. Marcus's company, the one that had given me a second chance, would suffer for Ryan's mistakes. "Why come to me?" I asked, though I was beginning to see where this was heading. Megan straightened, her resolve visibly strengthening. "Because you're the best marketing strategist I know, better than Ryan, though he'd never admit it. If anyone can figure out how to navigate this mess, it's you." The compliment, unexpected and seemingly sincere, caught me off guard. "I'm not sure what you expect me to do. I'm on bed rest, pregnant, and Ryan made it clear he wants nothing to do with me or the baby." "I don't know either," Megan admitted. "But doing nothing means watching Ryan destroy 2 companies and countless livelihoods. Out of pure ego." She stood to leave, placing a business card on my nightstand. "Think about it. If you come up with something, call me. I'll help however I can." After she left, I stared at the card, turning this new information over in my mind. Ryan was willing to risk Horizon's future just to spite me. The pettiness was breathtaking, but not entirely surprising. He'd always been willing to burn bridges rather than admit defeat. I reached for my phone, then hesitated. Marcus needed to know about the privacy scandal before negotiations progressed further, but revealing what Megan had told me would be burning her as a source. And without proof, it would be my word against Ryan's. Hardly a strong position. No, I needed to be smarter than that. If Ryan wanted to play corporate chess, he'd find I was no longer the pawn he remembered. I called Zoe instead. "Hey, stranger," she answered cheerfully. "How's bed rest treating you?" "About as well as you'd expect," I replied. "Listen, Zoe, I need a favor. A big one." "Name it." "I need you to pick up a tech reporter you know." Zoe's laugh echoed through the phone. "Livy, I run a coffee shop. I don't exactly hobnob with journalists." "But Cooper does," I countered, referring to her husband, a tech consultant who frequently complained about the reporters pestering him for inside information. "And I need to speak with someone who covers the tech industry, preferably someone with an interest in privacy issues." There was a pause as Zoe processed this request. "Okay, color me intrigued. What are you up to?" "Protecting myself and a lot of other people," I said simply. "Can you help?" "I'll talk to Cooper tonight. But Olivia, be careful. Whatever this is, it sounds serious." "It is," I admitted. "But so am I." 3 days later, Zoe introduced me to Jamie Rodriguez, a tech reporter known for hard-hitting exposés on industry malpractice. From my bedroom office, I laid out what I knew about Horizon's privacy issues, being careful not to reveal Megan as my source. Jamie's eyes lit up as I spoke. "This is big, really big, but I'd need proof, documentation." "I don't have that," I said truthfully, "but I know where to find it." And I did. Years of managing Horizon's marketing had given me intimate knowledge of their systems, their procedures, and most importantly, their weaknesses. I knew exactly what Jamie would need to verify the story independently without compromising Megan or implicating me directly. "Give me 3 days," Jamie promised, scribbling notes furiously. "If what you're saying checks out, this will be front page." As Jamie left, I felt a mixture of resolve and apprehension. I wasn't just protecting Stellar or getting revenge on Ryan. I was potentially affecting the livelihoods of everyone at Horizon, including many who had been kind to me during my time there. But the alternative was worse. If Ryan's cover-up continued, the eventual fallout would be catastrophic. At least this way, there was a chance for controlled damage, for transparency and accountability. I called Marcus next, careful to reveal only enough to encourage him to delay the acquisition talks without exposing the impending story. "I need you to trust me on this," I said when he pressed for details. "Just stall for a week, that's all I'm asking." Marcus sighed, but I could hear the smile in his voice. "Olivia Chen," What exactly are you plotting? Nothing illegal or unethical, I assured him. Just necessary. The next 5 days were a whirlwind of covert calls, carefully worded, emails and strategic planning, all from my bed, with Lily growing steadily within me, as if drawing strength from my renewed purpose. Then came the morning I'd been working toward. Jamie's exposé dropped like a bomb in the tech world. Privacy breach, Horizon Technologies, app, leaks user data. The article was meticulous, damning, and most importantly, based entirely on verifiable evidence that Jamie had uncovered through the channels I'd subtly suggested. There was nothing to connect me to the story, but within hours, Horizon's stock was plummeting, and Ryan was facing a barrage of questions from users, shareholders, and regulatory agencies. I watched it unfold on my laptop, a strange mix of vindication and sadness washing over me. This wasn't how I'd imagined my professional life intersecting with Ryan's again, but he'd left me no choice. My phone rang. Megan. "It's chaos here," she said without preamble, her voice hushed. "Ryan's on the warpath. He's convinced someone leaked information to the press, but he can't figure out who. The board is in emergency sessions, and the PR team is completely overwhelmed." "What about the acquisition talks?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Suspended indefinitely. Stellar's board reached out this morning to express concerns about Horizon's business practices." I could hear the air quotes in her voice, along with a note of approval. "You did this somehow, didn't you?" "I merely pointed a good reporter in the right direction," I replied carefully. "The truth did the rest." Megan's laugh was both admiring and rueful. "Remind me never to cross you, Olivia. What happens now?" It was the question I'd been asking myself since setting these events in motion. What did happen now? Horizon would survive the scandal if they handled it correctly, acknowledge the breach, fix the security issues, compensated affected users. But Ryan's leadership was now in question, and the company's reputation would take months, if not years, to recover. "Now," I said slowly, "we see if Horizon's board has the wisdom to prioritize the company over Ryan's ego. And if they don't?" I thought about Marcus, about Stellar, about the opportunity that might emerge from this crisis. Then other options will present themselves. After we hung up, I turned my attention to the cascade of messages filling my inbox. Marcus wanted an urgent call. The Stellar board was reconvening. Industry contacts were reaching out with questions, theories, opportunities. In the midst of the professional chaos, I felt Lily kick, stronger than ever before, as if applauding her mother's maneuvering. I placed my hand over the spot, smiling despite the uncertainty ahead. "That's right, little one. No one messes with your mom." The doctor's appointment later that week brought the news I'd been hoping for. The threatened miscarriage was officially resolved, and I could gradually return to normal activities. "Take it slow," Dr. Morris cautioned, reviewing my charts. "No. Heavy lifting, minimize stress." I couldn't help laughing at that last directive. Dr. Morris looked up, one eyebrow raised. "Something amusing about stress reduction, Ms. Chen." "Just the timing," I admitted. "My professional life is complicated at the moment." She nodded, understanding. "The tech industry scandal. It's been all over the news." I tried not to react, keeping my expression neutral. "Yes, it's certainly causing waves." Dr. Morris studied me for a moment, then smiled slightly. "Well, whatever your involvement, try to remember that your primary job right now is growing this baby. The corporate world will still be there after Lily arrives." It was a gentle reminder I needed to hear. In the excitement of outmaneuvering Ryan, I'd almost forgotten the most important goal, bringing my daughter safely into the world. That afternoon, I ventured outside for the first time in weeks, taking a cautious walk around the neighborhood with my mother hovering protectively at my side. The fresh air felt glorious after so long confined, and the physical activity loosened muscles stiff from inactivity. "You seem different," Eleanor observed as we rounded the corner back toward home. "More centered, somehow." I considered this. "I feel different. For months, I've been reacting to Ryan's decisions, trying to rebuild after he pulled the rug out from under me. But now..." I gestured vaguely, struggling to articulate the shift. "Now I'm making my own moves again." My mother squeezed my arm affectionately. "That's the Olivia I know, always 3 steps ahead." As we approached the house, I spotted an unfamiliar car in the driveway, sleek, expensive, and unmistakably corporate. My steps faltered. "Are we expecting visitors?" I asked, tension creeping back into my shoulders. Eleanor frowned. "Not that I'm aware of." We entered cautiously to find my father in the living room, engaged in conversation with an elegant woman in her 60s, impeccably dressed in a designer suit that probably cost more than all the furniture in the room combined. "Ah, here she is," Daniel said, looking relieved at our arrival. "Olivia, this is Victoria Palmer. She asked to speak with you." Victoria Palmer. The name registered immediately. She was the chairwoman of Horizon's board, a formidable business leader known for her no-nonsense approach and strategic brilliance. What on earth was she doing in my parents' living room? "Ms. Chen," Victoria said, rising smoothly, "thank you for seeing me on such short notice." "I wasn't aware I had a choice," I replied, more bluntly than I'd intended. Pregnancy had worn down my diplomatic filters. To my surprise, Victoria laughed, a warm, genuine sound at odds with her intimidating reputation. Directness, refreshing. "May we speak privately?" My parents exchanged a look, then excused themselves, my mother shooting me a concerned glance as they retreated to the kitchen. I lowered myself carefully onto the sofa, trying not to show how much the short walk had tired me. "So," I began once we were alone, "to what do I owe this unexpected visit? I'm assuming it relates to recent events at Horizon." Victoria nodded, her sharp eyes assessing me. "You assume correctly. The privacy breach has created quite the crisis for us, one that Ryan Walsh seems particularly ill-equipped to handle." I kept my expression neutral, waiting for her to continue. "The board has lost confidence in Ryan's leadership," she stated matter-of-factly. "His response to the crisis has been defensive, evasive, and frankly, damaging to shareholder value. We're preparing to make a change." My heart skipped a beat. "I see. And you're telling me this because..." Victoria leaned forward slightly. "Because we want you to take his place." The room seemed to tilt. "Excuse me?" "I've been watching your career for some time, Ms. Chen. Your work at Stellar since leaving Horizon has been exceptional. More importantly, I'm well aware that many of Horizon's most successful campaigns over the past 3 years were primarily your work, not Ryan's." She smiled thinly. "I make it my business to know these things." I struggled to process what she was suggesting. "You want me, your CEO's pregnant ex-wife, to replace him? That sounds like the plot of a bad revenge movie, not a sound business decision." "On the contrary, it's entirely business." Victoria's expression remained impassive. "The privacy scandal requires a complete overhaul of Horizon's approach to user trust and brand integrity. Your background in ethical marketing and your understanding of both our company and the broader industry make you uniquely qualified. And the fact that I'm 7 months pregnant is irrelevant to your qualifications." She waved a dismissive hand. "We can accommodate a maternity leave. What we cannot accommodate is continued leadership that prioritizes reputation management over actual accountability." The irony was almost too much. Ryan had left me because he thought a baby would derail our professional ambitions. Now the baby was still coming, and I was being offered his job. "This is unexpected," I managed, mind racing. Victoria stood, straightening her already perfect suit. Take 24 hours to consider it. We're meeting tomorrow evening to finalize our decision. She placed a business card on the coffee table. My direct line. I look forward to your call. After she left, I remained frozen on the sofa, the magnitude of what had just happened washing over me in waves. My parents emerged from the kitchen, their expressions a mixture of concern and curiosity. What did Victoria Palmer want? Wait, Father asked, settling beside me. She offered me Ryan's job, I said, the words sounding surreal even as I spoke them. They're firing him over the privacy scandal, and they want me to take over as CEO. My parents exchanged stunned looks. And what did you say? Eleanor asked carefully. I placed both hands on my rounded belly, feeling Lily move within me. I said I'd think about it. And I would. Because beyond the sweet irony of replacing the man who'd abandoned us, beyond the vindication of having my talents recognized at the highest level, there were serious considerations. Was I ready for such responsibility, especially with a newborn on the way? Could I ethically lead a company through a crisis I'd helped expose? And most importantly, what kind of future would this decision create for Lily and me? As if sensing my thoughts, Lily kicked again, strong and decisive. I smiled, suddenly certain of at least one thing. Whatever I decided, it would be on my terms, not Ryan's. Never again would I let him or anyone else dictate the limits of what I could achieve. Well, my father said, breaking the thoughtful silence. I guess the saying is true after all. What saying? I asked, distracted by my swirling thoughts. He grinned, his eyes twinkling with mischief and pride. Living well really is the best revenge. 24 hours wasn't nearly enough time to decide whether to accept Victoria Palmer's offer. I paced my parents' living room, phone clutched in my hand as the deadline approached. My mother watched from the doorway, concern etched on her face. You don't have to decide right now, she said gently. You could ask for more time. I shook my head. Victoria Palmer doesn't extend deadlines. That's part of her reputation. Then what's holding you back? A week ago, you were strategizing how to protect yourself from Ryan. Now you have the chance to replace him entirely. It was a fair question. The opportunity was undeniably tempting, not just for the vindication, but for the professional recognition. Yet something felt off about the whole situation. It feels too easy, I admitted. Too convenient. Ryan makes a mistake, I expose it, and suddenly I'm being handed his job. Business doesn't work that way, especially not at Victoria Palmer's level. My mother crossed the room, resting her hand on my shoulder. Maybe sometimes it does. Maybe this is the universe balancing the scales. I wanted to believe that. After everything Ryan had put me through, the idea of cosmic justice was appealing, but my business instincts were screaming caution. I dialed Victoria's number before. I could talk myself out of it. Ms. Chen, she answered on the first ring. I've been expecting your call. Before I give you my answer, I said, dispensing with pleasantries, I need to understand why me. There must be a dozen qualified executives within Horizon who could step into Ryan's role. Direct as always, Victoria noted with approval. Yes, there are other candidates, but none with your unique perspective. Which is, you understand both how Ryan thinks and how to counteract his worst tendencies. Her tone was matter of fact. The board believes he'll contest his removal. Having someone who can anticipate his moves would be advantageous. And there it was, the catch I'd been waiting for. They weren't just hiring me for my qualifications. They were weaponizing my history with Ryan. So I'm a strategic hire to neutralize your Ryan problem, I summarized, disappointment settling in my chest. Not because of my marketing expertise or leadership capabilities. Both factors are relevant, Victoria countered smoothly. Your professional credentials are impeccable. But yes, your personal history with Ryan is an asset in this particular situation. I thought of Lily, of the future I wanted to build for her. Did I want that future to begin with a job offered at least partially out of calculation, not merit? I'm sorry, Ms. Palmer, but I have to decline. The silence that followed was heavy with surprise. Victoria Palmer wasn't accustomed to rejection. May I ask why? She finally said, her composure barely ruffled. Because I don't want my next chapter to be defined by my relationship with Ryan, even adversarially. I left that life behind for a reason. I took a deep breath. And frankly, I'm not convinced that jumping into a CEO role 7 months pregnant is the right move for me or my daughter. I see. Victoria's tone gave nothing away. Well, that's disappointing. But I respect your decision. After we hung up, my mother looked at me with a mixture of confusion and respect. I thought you'd jump at the chance to show Ryan what you're capable of. So did I admitted. But that's exactly why I had to say no. I don't want my success to be a reaction to him anymore. Whatever I do next needs to be for me and Lily, not against Ryan. My father appeared in the doorway, having clearly overheard the conversation. I'm proud of you, Olivia. Not many people would turn down an opportunity like that, especially after what you've been through. Thanks, Dad. I sank onto the sofa, suddenly exhausted. I just hope I didn't make a huge mistake. Sometimes the right decisions feel that way, he said, his voice gentle. But that doesn't make them wrong. That night, I dreamed of Lily, not as a newborn, but as a young woman, strong and confident, asking me about the choices I'd made when I was carrying her. In the dream, I was able to tell her that every decision, even the difficult ones, had been made with her best interests at heart. When I woke, I felt an unexpected peace about declining Victoria's offer. The feeling lasted exactly 3 hours until Megan called with news that made my stomach drop. Ryan knows, she said without preamble, her voice tight with tension. He figured out the connection between the reporter's story and the points you would have known from your time at Horizon. My hand instinctively went to my belly, protective. Is he certain or just suspicious? Certain enough to be out for blood. The board may be planning to replace him, but they haven't done it yet. He's still in power, and he's using it to find out who leaked information to the press. You didn't leak anything, I reminded her. Neither did I. The reporter verified everything independently. Technicalities won't matter to Ryan when he's this angry. Megan sounded genuinely frightened. Olivia, he's talking about legal action. Against you, specifically. The threat sent a chill through me. On what grounds? I haven't done anything illegal. Corporate espionage. Breach of your non-disclosure agreement. He's grasping at straws, but with Horizon's legal resources. She let the implication hang. Even baseless legal threats could drain my limited savings and add stress I didn't need in the final months of pregnancy. Ryan knew that. This wasn't about winning a case. It was about punishment. There's more, Megan continued reluctantly. He's been making calls, trying to get information about your arrangement with Stellar. I think he's going to try to interfere with your job there. My already precarious financial situation flashed before my eyes. Without the Stellar position, with legal fees looming, with a baby on the way, the stability I'd been rebuilding was suddenly on shaky ground again. Thank you for the warning, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'll figure something out. After hanging up, I called Marcus immediately. If Ryan was targeting my position at Stellar, I needed to get ahead of the situation. Marcus answered on the second ring. Olivia, I was just about to call you. The strangest thing happened this morning. My heart sank. Let me guess. Ryan Walsh reached out with concerns about my involvement in the Horizon privacy scandal. Yes, actually. Marcus sounded surprised. How did you know? Because he's trying to destabilize my position at Stellar. I explained, the pieces falling neatly into place. He can't get to me directly, so he's targeting my livelihood. Well, it won't work, Marcus said firmly. I know manipulation when I see it. Besides, after Victoria Palmer called me this morning, I'm more convinced than ever that you're exactly where you need to be. I froze. Victoria Palmer called you? Why? Apparently, you turned down quite the job offer, Marcus said, a smile in his voice. She seemed to think I should know what kind of talent I have working for me. Said something about poaching attempts being fair game now that you'd declined their offer. Relief washed over me. Victoria hadn't taken my rejection personally. If anything, she seemed to respect my decision. So you're not worried about the Horizon situation? I asked cautiously. Worried? Olivia, you turning down a CEO position to stay with Stellar tells me everything I need to know about your loyalty and judgment. If anything, I think it's time we discussed your future here more seriously. The conversation that followed changed. Everything. Marcus wasn't just offering reassurance. He was proposing a new role as Stellar's chief marketing officer, with a significant salary increase and flexibility for my impending maternity leave. The board has been considering this move for weeks, he explained. Victoria's call just accelerated our timeline. We need to announce it before Ryan can spread any more rumors about your standing here. By the time we hung up, my head was spinning with the unexpected turn of events. I'd turned down one executive position only to be offered another, one that came without the baggage of replacing Ryan, but with all the recognition of my talents. So, my father said when I emerged from my room, visibly dazed. Good news or bad news? Good, I think. I sank into a kitchen chair. I just got promoted to Chief Marketing Officer at Stellar. Eleanor clapped her hands together. Olivia, that's wonderful. It is, I agreed, still processing. But Ryan won't take this lying down. If anything, it'll make him more determined to discredit me. My father's expression hardened. Let him try. You have people in your corner now, people who see your value. The next few days proved him right, about both parts. My promotion was announced with fanfare, complete with a press release highlighting my achievements and vision for Stellar's marketing future. The industry response was overwhelmingly positive, with congratulatory messages flooding my inbox. But as predicted, Ryan escalated his campaign against me. The threatened legal action materialized in the form of a cease and desist letter, accusing me of violating my non-disclosure agreement. It was quickly followed by pointed questions from industry contacts about my role in the Horizon scandal. He's trying to paint you as vindictive and untrustworthy, Megan reported during our now regular calls, making it sound like you orchestrated the exposé purely for personal revenge. And are people believing him? I asked, trying to focus on preparing for an important client presentation rather than Ryan's smear tactics. Some are. Others see it for what it is, a desperate attempt to shift blame. She paused. The board meeting is tomorrow. Word is they're definitely removing him, but the vote won't be unanimous. Who's his replacement? That's the strangest part. They're not naming anyone yet. Victoria Palmer will step in as interim CEO while they conduct what they're calling a thorough search. Megan sounded puzzled. It's unusual. Typically, they'd have the successor lined up before making a move like this. I recalled Victoria's words about anticipating Ryan's resistance. Perhaps this was part of her strategy, keeping the permanent replacement ambiguous to prevent Ryan from targeting a specific individual. What will you do after he's gone? I asked, suddenly aware that Megan had taken significant risks to help me. Her laugh held a note of genuine amusement. Would you believe I've been offered a position at Stellar? In the business development department. Marcus, I realized, smiling despite the tension. He's building an arc for everyone jumping ship from Horizon. Smart man, and I'm not the only one considering the offer. The implications were clear. Horizon was destabilizing, talent was fleeing, and Stellar was positioned to benefit. In business terms, it was a victory. Yet I felt no satisfaction, only concern for the many Horizon employees caught in the crossfire of Ryan's poor decisions. The next day's headlines confirmed what Megan had predicted. Horizon Technologies, CEO ousted amid privacy scandal. The financial markets responded immediately, with Horizon's stock plummeting further and investors publicly questioning the company's future. I was in the middle of reviewing designs for a new campaign when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "You think you've won, don't you?" Ryan's voice, cold and slightly slurred, sent ice through my veins. My finger hovered over the end call button, but something kept me listening. "Ryan, I'm not having this conversation," I said firmly. "Please don't contact me again." "You turned down the job," he continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "Victoria offered you my position, and you said no. Why?" The question caught me off guard. "That's not your business anymore." "Everything about you is my business," he hissed, the words sending a disturbing chill down my spine. "You're carrying my child, even if you pretend otherwise." My breath caught. "What are you talking about?" "Did you think I wouldn't figure it out? The timing, your sudden departure, it all makes sense. That baby is mine, and I want a paternity test to prove it." The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed. "The baby you explicitly told me to get rid of? The one you said would ruin everything we'd worked for? That baby?" "People say things they don't mean in the heat of the moment," Ryan countered, his tone shifting to something almost reasonable. "I've had time to reconsider." "No." The word came out sharp and final. "You don't get to change your mind about our daughter. You made your choice, Ryan. Now live with it." "Our daughter," he repeated, latching onto the confirmation like a predator. "So it is a girl." I silently cursed my slip. "Stay away from us, Ryan. I mean it. This isn't over, Olivia. Not by a long shot." The line went dead, leaving me shaking with a mixture of rage and fear. I hadn't anticipated this. Ryan suddenly deciding he had paternal rights after explicitly rejecting the pregnancy. It was a nightmare scenario I hadn't prepared for. I called my doctor immediately, making her aware that under no circumstances was Ryan to be given any information about me or the baby. Then I contacted a family law attorney, scheduling an emergency consultation for the following day. By the time I arrived at work the next morning, the situation had deteriorated further. Ryan had made a public statement claiming he'd been unjustly removed during a personal crisis, specifically referencing his impending fatherhood and estrangement from his wife. "He's trying to garner sympathy," Marcus observed grimly, showing me the statement on his tablet, painting himself as a victim of circumstance rather than his own bad decisions. "And using my pregnancy to do it," I added, feeling violated by the public co-opting of something so personal. This is a new low, even for him. The attorney I consulted that afternoon was blunt in her assessment. "He has no legal claim to the child at this point, but once she's born, he could petition for paternity testing and visitation rights. Even though he explicitly rejected her, told me to get rid of it?" The injustice burned like acid. Unfortunately, yes. The courts generally favor giving both biological parents some role in a child's life, unless there's evidence of abuse or endangerment. She studied me over her glasses. "Do you have documentation of his rejection? Texts, emails, witnesses?" I thought back to that terrible night in our living room. It was a verbal conversation, but Megan Foster was aware of his reaction, and my parents know how devastated I was afterward. "Hearsay and secondhand accounts?" she sighed. "Better than nothing, but not ideal. What we need is direct evidence of his unsuitability as a father." The challenge was clear. Document Ryan's behavior. Establish a pattern of actions that would make any judge question his parental fitness. But how could I do that without engaging with him directly? Something I desperately wanted to avoid. The answer came from an unexpected source. As I left the attorney's office, my phone buzzed with a text from Victoria Palmer. "We should talk. Dinner tonight?" Victoria had chosen an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind frequented by power brokers making deals over expensive wine. I felt distinctly out of place with my maternity dress and swollen ankles, but the maitre d' led me to a private table where Victoria waited, looking every bit the corporate powerhouse. "Olivia," she greeted me warmly, standing briefly. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." "Your text intrigued me," I admitted, settling carefully into the chair a waiter pulled out for me. "Though I'm not sure what we have to discuss, now that I've declined your offer." Victoria sipped her water, studying me with sharp eyes. "Ryan Walsh's public statement today crossed several lines. The board is concerned about the company's image, particularly his attempt to use sympathy for his family situation to undermine our decision." "I'm concerned too," I said cautiously, "but for more personal reasons." Precisely why I wanted to meet. She leaned forward slightly. "Horizon needs to distance itself from Ryan's narrative, and you need protection from his apparent new interest. In fatherhood, I believe we can help each other." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "The board is prepared to offer Ryan a severance package contingent upon his signing a comprehensive non-disparagement agreement, one that specifically prohibits him from making public statements about you, your pregnancy, or any supposed connection to Horizon." It was an elegant solution to part of my problem. "And what do you want from me in return?" Victoria smiled slightly. "A joint statement clarifying that while you previously worked with Horizon, your current pregnancy and personal situation have no connection to the company or its recent leadership changes." "That's it?" I asked, suspicion rising. "A simple statement?" "And perhaps your consulting services on a limited basis," she added smoothly. "Horizon's marketing department is in disarray. We need someone who understands our brand to help with the transition while we rebuild." The request made business sense, even if the timing seemed calculated. "You're asking me to help save the company that my ex-husband nearly destroyed and that he's now trying to use to insert himself back into my life. I'm asking you to protect your professional reputation while helping us protect ours," Victoria corrected. "Ryan's narrative benefits neither of us. Together, we can control the story." I considered her offer as the waiter delivered our appetizers. Working with Horizon again, even as a consultant, felt like stepping backward. Yet, the non-disparagement agreement would provide a legal barrier between Ryan and my child, one with substantial financial penalties if he broke it. "I'd need Marcus's approval for any consulting work," I said finally. "Stellar is my priority now." "Already discussed," Victoria replied with a small smile. "He seemed to think it would strengthen the relationship between our companies. Something about keeping friends close and competitors closer." Of course, Marcus was always 3 steps ahead, seeing the business advantage in every situation. In this case, having me consult for Horizon would give Stellar valuable insights into their former rivals' restructuring. "One more condition," I added, protective. Instinct overriding business sense. "The non-disparagement agreement needs to include provisions about Lily, my daughter. Ryan is to make no claims of paternity, seek no contact, and pursue no legal rights regarding her. Ever." Victoria's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's extensive and potentially difficult to enforce." "Those are my terms," I said firmly. "Otherwise, I'll handle Ryan my own way." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I'll have legal draft the language. No guarantees, but we'll make it as strong as possible." We spent the remainder of dinner discussing the practical details, the scope of my consulting work, the timeline for the joint statement, the approach to Ryan. By the time we finished dessert, a concession to my pregnancy cravings that Victoria politely ignored, We had outlined a strategy that served both our interests. As we waited for the valet to bring our cars, Victoria turned to me with an unexpected question. "Why did you really turn down the CEO position, Olivia? And don't say it was the pregnancy. We both know that wasn't the decisive factor." I considered deflecting, but something about her directness deserved honesty in return. "Because I wanted to succeed on my own terms, not as a reaction to Ryan's failure," I admitted. "Taking his job would have kept me tethered to him, to our history. I needed a clean break." Victoria nodded thoughtfully. "A principled decision, rare in our industry." Her car arrived, and she handed the valet a generous tip. "For what it's worth, that's exactly why the board wanted you. Not despite your history with Ryan, but because of how you've chosen to move beyond it." As I drove home, her words stayed with me. All this time, I'd been focused on escaping Ryan's shadow, on proving I could succeed without him. But perhaps the true measure of my growth wasn't in rejecting everything connected to him, but in engaging with it on my own terms, from a position of strength rather than reactive emotion. The next morning, I awoke to news that changed the dynamic, once again. While Victoria and I had been strategizing over dinner, Ryan had been making moves of his own, and they were far more desperate than anyone anticipated. He tried to access confidential Horizon files after hours, Megan reported, calling me before I'd even had my morning tea. Security caught him in the executive suite at 2 a.m., downloading data to an external drive. My hand froze mid-reach for my mug. "What kind of data?" "Everything. Financial records, client lists, proprietary technology specs, the works. He was planning to take it all." "Corporate espionage," I murmured, the irony not lost on me. "The very thing he accused me of." "Exactly. He's been arrested, Olivia. This isn't just a termination anymore. It's potentially criminal charges." The implication struck me immediately. Ryan wasn't just facing professional disgrace. He was looking at legal consequences that could include jail time. Whatever his motivations for suddenly showing interest in Lily, they would be irrelevant if he was incarcerated. "Victoria needs to know about this right away," I said, already reaching for my laptop. "It changes everything about our agreement." "She's the one who called security when the system flagged his after-hours access," Megan replied. "Trust me, she knows." Indeed, Victoria's email arrived before I'd finished breakfast, terse and to the point. "Need to revisit our discussion. In light of recent developments, my office, 10 a.m. The Horizon headquarters felt strange as I entered it for the first time since leaving Ryan. The security guard recognized me, his eyes widening slightly at my obvious pregnancy, but he said nothing as he issued me a visitor's badge. The executive floor was unnaturally quiet, with employees speaking in hushed tones and casting nervous glances toward Ryan's former office, now taped off like a crime scene, which in a sense, it was. Victoria met me at the elevator, her usual composure slightly frayed around the edges. "Thank you for coming so quickly. This situation has escalated beyond our expectations." "Beyond anyone's expectations," I agreed, following her to a conference room rather than the compromised executive office. "What happens now?" "That depends partly on you." Victoria closed the door firmly behind us. "The board wants to press charges. The data Ryan attempted to steal represents millions in intellectual property and sensitive client information." "But," I prompted, sensing her hesitation. "But pursuing criminal charges means a public trial, media attention, and potential damage to the company's already fragile reputation." She sat across from me, her gaze direct. "Some board members have suggested offering Ryan a deal. No criminal charges if he signs an ironclad non-disclosure agreement, forfeits his remaining shares, and leaves the industry entirely." The implications were clear. "And my situation? With Lily? How does that factor in?" "It could be included in the agreement," Victoria confirmed. Complete legal separation from you and the child, with significant financial penalties for any violation. It was more than I'd hoped for. A clean break, legally enforced, with Ryan removed not just from my life, but from the entire industry where we might cross paths. Yet something about it felt wrong. "You're letting him off too easily," I said, slowly. "What he did wasn't just a breach of company policy. It was a crime, premeditated and deliberate." Victoria's expression remained neutral. "Our priority is protecting Horizon, not pursuing justice for its own sake." "And if he does this to another company, takes their data, violates their trust?" I challenged. "You're setting a precedent that executives can commit corporate espionage with minimal consequences if they have the right connections." "That's a fair point," Victoria admitted, looking slightly taken aback by my perspective. "But I'm not sure the board will see it that way." I thought of Lily, of the example I wanted to set for her. Would I want her to know I'd helped? A man escaped consequences for his actions just because it was convenient. Would I want her to learn that powerful people played by different rules? "I can't support that approach," I said finally. Ryan made his choices. Crossing lines he knew were unacceptable. He deserves the same consequences anyone else would face in his position. Victoria studied me for a long moment. "Even if it means he could challenge paternity from prison once the baby is born." "Even then," I confirmed, though the thought sent fear spiraling through me. "I'll face that battle if it comes, but I won't be complicit in a cover-up." Something like respect flickered in Victoria's eyes. "I'll convey your position to the board," she said, rising from her chair. "Though I can't promise they'll agree." As it turned out, they didn't need to. By that afternoon, news had leaked to the press about Ryan's arrest, forcing Horizon's hand. The company issued a statement confirming they would fully cooperate with authorities in the investigation of their former CEO's actions. Ryan's bail hearing was scheduled for the following day. According to Megan's sources, he looked shell-shocked when taken into custody, as if he couldn't quite believe the consequences of his actions had finally caught up with him. I watched the coverage with mixed emotions. There was no satisfaction in seeing him fall so completely, only a sad recognition that the man I'd once loved had been consumed by his own ambition and entitlement. Whatever we'd had together was truly over now, buried under the weight of his choices and my determination to build a new life without him. That evening, as I sat in my parents' backyard watching the sunset, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over. When I get out, we'll discuss our daughter. R." I stared at the message, feeling an old fear trying to reassert itself. But something had changed in me since that day with the pregnancy test. Something fundamental and unshakable. Ryan no longer had the power to control my emotions or dictate my choices. I blocked the number without responding, then called my lawyer to forward the message as evidence of continued harassment. Whatever legal battles lay ahead, I would face them with the same strength and clarity I'd found in standing up to Victoria's board. As darkness fell around me, Lily kicked, a strong, determined movement that made me smile despite everything. "Just you and me against the world, little one," I whispered, echoing words I'd spoken months ago but now with absolute conviction. And we're winning. 2 weeks passed in a strange limbo. Ryan remained in custody, unable to make the substantial bail set by the judge who cited him as both a flight risk and a potential threat to Horizon's intellectual property. The company's stock stabilized slightly as Victoria Palmer took firm control as interim CEO, implementing immediate changes to address the privacy breach and restore customer confidence. Meanwhile, my life continued its forward momentum. My consulting role with Horizon gave me an unusual window into both companies, Stellar, where I was settling into my role as Chief Marketing Officer, and Horizon, where I was helping to repair the damage Ryan had caused. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was fixing problems created by the same man who'd claimed a baby would prevent me from handling professional responsibilities. At 8 months pregnant, I'd developed a routine that accommodated my growing limitations. Mornings at Stellar's, offices, afternoons working remotely from my parents' house, and virtual meetings with the Horizon team scheduled during my high-energy hours. My father had converted the spare bedroom into a proper office, complete with an ergonomic chair designed for pregnancy and a standing desk for when sitting became too uncomfortable. "You're pushing yourself too hard," my mother observed one evening as I finished a late call with Horizon's development team. "The doctor said you should be slowing down now." I rubbed my lower back, which had been aching persistently all day. "I will, soon. But with Ryan's preliminary hearing next week, I need to make sure everything's in place." Eleanor frowned, folding laundry that now included tiny onesies and soft blankets for Lily. "What does his hearing have to do with your work schedule?" "Everything," I admitted. "If he's released or takes a plea deal, I need both companies positioned to withstand whatever he might try next. And personally." I hesitated, still uncomfortable discussing the fear that lingered beneath my professional confidence. "You're worried about his threats regarding Lily," my mother finished for me, setting aside the laundry to sit beside me. "Have you heard anything more from his lawyer?" I shook my head. "Nothing since that formal letter requesting paternity, testing after she's born. My attorney says that's standard procedure in cases like this, but it feels—" I struggled to find the right word. "Violating," Eleanor supplied, her expression darkening. "After he rejected both of you so completely." "Oh, exactly." I shifted, trying to find a comfortable position as Lily performed what felt like acrobatics in my womb. The logical part of me knows he's just lashing out, trying to maintain some control over me since he's lost everything else. But the thought of him having any legal claim to her— My mother covered my hand with hers. "One battle at a time, sweetheart. Let's get through the hearing first." She was right, of course. Ryan's criminal case needed to conclude before any family court would consider his paternity claims. Still, the uncertainty hung over what should have been a joyful time of preparation and anticipation. The next morning brought unexpected news that shifted the landscape once again. Megan called as I was reviewing quarterly projections for Stellar's biggest client. "He's taking a deal," she said without preamble. "Ryan's agreed to plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for cooperation." I set down my pen, giving her my full attention. Cooperation with what? That's the interesting part. The investigators found evidence that the privacy breach wasn't just negligence, it was deliberate. Someone intentionally created the security vulnerability and then tried to cover it up when users started reporting issues. And they think Ryan was involved? The implications were staggering. Negligence was one thing. Intentional violation of user privacy was several levels worse, both legally and ethically. "They know he ordered the cover-up," Megan confirmed. "What they don't know is whether he authorized the breach in the first place. That's what they want his testimony on." A chill ran through me as pieces clicked into place. They're investigating whether Horizon was harvesting user data illegally. Exactly. And if Ryan gives them what they want, he'll likely avoid jail time entirely. The news should have alarmed me. Ryan walking free would mean renewed threats regarding Lily. Yet something about Megan's tone suggested there was more to the story. "What aren't you telling me?" I prompted. She hesitated. "The prosecutors aren't just interested in the privacy breach. They're looking at potential securities. Fraud as well. Something about Ryan misrepresenting Horizon's financial position to investors." The quarterly reports, I realized, remembering how Ryan had insisted on handling all communications with shareholders himself, even though it typically fell under marketing's purview. He was inflating the numbers. Which means his legal troubles are far from over, Megan concluded. Even if he cooperates on the privacy issue, the securities investigation could take months, maybe years. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by guilt. I shouldn't be glad about anyone facing criminal charges, even Ryan. Yet the practical implication, that he would be too entangled in legal proceedings to pursue custody battles, was undeniably positive for Lily and me. "There's one more thing," Megan added, her voice dropping slightly. "Victoria wants to meet with you today, in person. She was very specific about it being face-to-face, not virtual." My instincts prickled with caution. Did she say why? "Only that it concerns both your consulting role and personal matters." Megan's concern was evident. "Do you want me to be there, as a buffer or witness?" The offer touched me. Over. The weeks of working together, Megan had become more than a convenient ally. She was a friend, one of the few people who understood the full complexity of my situation with Ryan and Horizon. "Thanks, but I can handle Victoria," I assured her. "Just keep me updated on any developments with Ryan's plea deal." Victoria had requested we meet at a small upscale cafe near Stellar's offices, neutral territory, but private enough for sensitive conversations. When I arrived, slightly breathless from the short walk, she was already seated at a corner table, a pot of herbal tea waiting. "You look well," she greeted me, rising briefly as I approached, though perhaps ready for that maternity leave to begin. I smiled ruefully, easing into the chair across from her. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been there. She poured tea for both of us, her movements precise. 2 children, both delivered in the middle of merger negotiations. My water broke during a board presentation with my second. The revelation surprised me. Victoria had never mentioned her family before, maintaining a strictly professional persona in all our interactions. "How did you manage it?" I asked, genuine curiosity overriding business caution. "The balance, I mean." Something softened in her typically shrewd gaze. "Not perfectly. There were missed recitals and bedtime stories sacrificed to conference calls, but we found our rhythm." She set down her cup, transitioning smoothly back to business. "Which brings me to the reason for this meeting." I straightened, professional instincts kicking in. "Megan mentioned it concerns my consulting arrangement." "Partially. As you've likely heard, Ryan Walsh has agreed to a plea deal concerning the privacy breach. What you may not know is that as part of that agreement, he's required to divest all remaining interests in Horizon Technologies." I nodded slowly. "That seems standard in cases like this." "It is. What's less standard is how those interests are to be redistributed." Victoria held my gaze steadily. "The board has voted to offer you a significant equity position in Horizon, in recognition of your contributions to stabilizing the company during this crisis." For the second time that day, I found myself completely blindsided. Equity? In the company I left? That my ex-husband nearly destroyed? "The very same," Victoria confirmed, a hint of amusement crossing her features. "Though I prefer to think of it as the company you've helped rebuild. Your consulting work these past weeks has been invaluable, Olivia. The marketing restructuring plan you developed has already begun restoring client confidence." I struggled to process the offer. Ownership in Horizon would mean long-term financial security for Lily and me, regardless of my position at Stellar. It would also mean a voice in the company's future direction, influence over decisions that had once been completely in Ryan's control. "I'm not sure what to say," I admitted. "This is unexpected." "Consider it compensation for the intellectual property Ryan denied you credit for during your marriage," Victoria suggested. "All those campaigns that built Horizon's brand? The strategies that attracted major clients? They were largely your work, something the board has come to fully appreciate." Her recognition of my uncredited contributions stirred something deep within me, not pride exactly, but validation. For years, Ryan had minimized my role, presenting my ideas as his own. Now, ironically, his downfall had revealed the truth. "There's a personal component to this offer as well," Victoria continued, her tone shifting subtly. "Ryan's legal team continues to make noise about paternity rights once your daughter is born. As a significant shareholder in Horizon, you would have certain advantages in any such proceedings." The implication was clear. Corporate resources, legal teams, financial stability, all would strengthen my position if custody battles emerged. "I appreciate the offer," I said carefully, "but I need to understand exactly what you're proposing. Equity in exchange for what? Continued consulting? Joining Horizon permanently after my maternity leave?" Victoria shook her head. "No strings? Attached to the equity itself. It's yours regardless of your professional decisions. However," she paused, selecting her words with precision, "the board would like to propose a more permanent arrangement as well." "You're offering me a job," I translated. Again. "Not just a job, a position as Chief Strategy Officer, reporting directly to me." Her eyes held mine with unexpected intensity. "Horizon needs a complete transformation, Olivia. New leadership, new vision, new ethical foundation. Who better to help build that than someone who's witnessed firsthand the damage caused by the old regime?" The proposition was compelling, even seductive. From Ryan's rejected wife to a C-suite executive at the very company he'd been forced to abandon, the symmetry was undeniable. Yet something held me back from immediate acceptance. "What about Stellar?" I asked. "Marcus took a chance on me when I had nothing. I can't just abandon him and the team." "Marcus Taylor is a shrewd businessman," Victoria pointed out. "He'd understand a strategic career move, especially one that could benefit Stellar through your continued goodwill." She was right. Marcus would likely support whatever decision I made, viewing it through the lens of business opportunity rather than personal loyalty. Still, the thought of leaving Stellar felt wrong, like abandoning a lifeboat that had carried me through the storm. "I need time to consider both offers," I said finally. "The equity and the position." Victoria nodded, seemingly unsurprised. "Of course, though I should mention that timing is somewhat crucial. The equity distribution must occur before Ryan's assets are formally released from judicial control, which will happen once his plea is entered next week." "I understand." I sipped my tea, buying time to organize my thoughts. "What about the interim CEO position? You've been filling that role." Something flashed across Victoria's face. Approval, perhaps, at my directness. "The board has asked me to continue through the transition. After that," she shrugged elegantly, "I have other companies requiring my attention. My specialty is crisis management, not day-to-day operations." The pieces aligned with sudden clarity. Victoria wasn't just offering me a C-suite position, she was grooming me for eventual succession to the CEO role, the very position I'd turned down weeks earlier. Only now, instead of replacing Ryan directly in a reactive move, I would earn the position through demonstrated value and strategic vision. "I'll have an answer for you in 48 hours, I promised, already mentally calculating how to approach this decision methodically. For both the equity and the position. Victoria seemed satisfied with this timeline. We spent the remainder of our meeting discussing the practical aspects of the equity transfer and the structure of the potential CSO role. By the time we parted, my mind was racing with possibilities, challenges, and the weighty recognition that my decisions now would shape not just my future, but Lily's as well. I called Marcus as soon as I returned to my office, requesting a private meeting that afternoon. He deserved to hear about Victoria's offer directly from me, not through industry channels. Marcus listened without interruption as I outlined both proposals, the equity position and the executive role at Horizon. When I finished, He leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You know," he said finally, "when I hired you back, I gave you 6 months before you'd be running your own shop or heading a major division somewhere. Looks like I was off by about 3 months." I blinked, surprised by his casual acceptance. "You're not upset?" He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Upset? Olivia, I'm impressed. Victoria Palmer doesn't make offers like this lightly. The fact that she wants you this badly only confirms what I already knew about your talents. But after everything Stellar has done for me..." Marcus held up a hand, stopping me mid-sentence. "Listen carefully. Loyalty in business matters, but it must never become a cage. You've given Stellar exactly what I brought you in for: a revitalized marketing strategy and a competitive edge against Horizon. If this opportunity is right for you and Lily, you should take it." His generosity of spirit touched me deeply. "What about my role here? The campaigns I've started?" "We'll manage," he assured me, "though I'd hope we might work out a transition period." His eyes twinkled with sudden mischief. "And perhaps preferential treatment for Stellar when partnership. Opportunities arise with Horizon in the future." That startled a laugh from me. "Always the businessman." "Always," he agreed cheerfully. "Now go home and think this through. Not as a marketer or executive, but as a soon-to-be mother planning for her child's future." It was sound advice, and I took it, spending the evening reviewing my options from every angle. The equity offer was straightforward enough: accepting. It would provide financial security and a stake in Horizon's future without obligating me professionally. The CSO position was more complex, requiring a full career pivot, just as I was preparing for maternity leave. I was still weighing my options the next morning when Zoe called with news that crystallized my decision. Ryan stopped by the coffee. "Shop," she said, her voice tight with concern. "Asking questions about you, your schedule, where you're living now." A chill ran down my spine. "He's out on bail?" "As of yesterday, apparently. Olivia, he seemed off, agitated. Kept saying he had rights and arrangements to make before the baby comes." The timing wasn't coincidental. Ryan had been released and immediately sought information about me, all while I was considering Victoria's offer of resources that could help protect Lily and me from exactly this type of threat. "Did you tell him anything?" I asked, already mentally cataloging security precautions. "Of course not." Zoe sounded offended at the suggestion. "I told him you didn't work here anymore and asked him to leave. Cooper was about to call security when he finally took off." "Thank you," I said fervently. "And I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Just be careful, okay? Maybe stay with your parents a bit longer than you planned." After we hung up, I sat motionless, one hand resting protectively on my belly. Ryan's behavior was escalating from legal maneuvers to personal surveillance. Whatever his claims about wanting involvement with Lily, his actions spoke of control and intimidation, not paternal concern. My decision crystallized with sudden clarity. I called Victoria immediately. "I accept both offers," I said when she answered. "The equity position and the CSO role, but I have conditions." If Victoria was surprised by my direct approach, she didn't show it. "I'm listening." "First, I need comprehensive security measures. Not just at the office, but for my parents' home and eventually my own place. Ryan's behavior is becoming concerning." "Already being arranged," Victoria said smoothly. "What else?" Her immediate response to my security concerns only confirmed I was making the right choice. "Second, I want a formal mentorship arrangement with you. If I'm going to help transform Horizon, I need your expertise and guidance." "Done. I was hoping you'd ask for that." "Third, I want to bring Megan Foster onto my team directly. She's proven her loyalty to the company above any personal ties to Ryan, and her insights will be valuable." Victoria paused briefly. "That can be arranged," though it might raise questions about your objectivity given your shared history with Ryan. My final condition addresses that, I continued confidently. Complete transparency about my history with Horizon. No hiding that I was married to Ryan, no pretending the pregnancy isn't his child. We acknowledge it professionally and move forward. Anything else would look like we have something to hide. This was the riskiest demand. Many companies would prefer to minimize such personal complications. But I was tired of shadows and half-truths. If I was going to help rebuild Horizon, it would be from a foundation of honesty. Victoria was silent for several long moments. The board may have concerns about that approach, she finally said. Then I'll address them directly, I replied, my resolve strengthening. But I won't begin this relationship with strategic omissions. That could backfire later. Very well, Victoria agreed, a new note of respect in her voice. Draft your ideal announcement, and we'll work from there. When can you start? I'll need 2 weeks to transition my projects at Stellar properly. After that, I can begin, with the understanding that my maternity leave starts in approximately 4 weeks. Perfect. I'll have legal prepare the equity documents immediately. Victoria paused, then added, Olivia, for what it's worth, I think you're making the right decision. Not just professionally, but personally as well. After we ended the call, I sat in my makeshift home office, absorbing the magnitude of what I'd just committed to. In a matter of weeks, I would be a C-suite executive at Horizon Technologies, with equity ownership and a direct line to the board. The position represented not just career advancement, but a platform from which to implement real change, ethical business practices, transparent leadership, and a corporate culture that valued innovation without sacrificing integrity. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. Ryan had abandoned me because he claimed a baby would derail my career. Now, that very pregnancy had indirectly led to professional opportunities beyond what either of us could have imagined. My phone buzzed with a text from Megan. Heard the news from Victoria. Congratulations, CSO Chen. Ready to follow your lead. I smiled, typing back. Hope you're ready for a challenge. We're rebuilding from the ground up. Her response came quickly. Wouldn't have it any other way. BTW, Ryan's been asking about your schedule. Be careful. The warning dampened my momentary elation, reminding me that while one battle was won, another loomed on the horizon. Ryan would not accept his professional downfall quietly, nor would he likely abandon his sudden interest in parental rights. As if sensing my renewed tension, Lily kicked forcefully, a strong movement that momentarily took my breath away. I placed both hands on my belly, whispering reassurance to my daughter. It's okay, little one. Mommy's got this covered. And I did. For perhaps the first time since that positive pregnancy test had changed everything, I felt fully in control of my destiny. Not just reacting to Ryan's choices, but actively creating the future I wanted for myself and my child. The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of transition planning. At Stellar, Marcus helped me organize a seamless handover of projects and clients. At Horizon, Victoria introduced me to key stakeholders and team members, laying groundwork for my formal start. Security specialists evaluated both my parents' home and the apartment I'd recently leased for after Lily's birth, installing advanced systems at Horizon's expense. Throughout it all, Ryan remained a shadowy presence on the periphery, not directly confronting me, but making his awareness known through strategic appearances. He was spotted near Stellar's offices, supposedly meeting with former business associates. He dined at restaurants adjacent to places where I had scheduled lunches. The message was clear. He was watching, waiting, planning his next move. My attorney assured me his behavior, while unsettling, remained within legal boundaries. Document everything, she advised during our weekly update calls. But don't engage. Any response from you only feeds whatever game he's playing. On my final day at Stellar, Marcus hosted a small farewell gathering, complete with non-alcoholic champagne and heartfelt gifts for both me and the baby. As the celebration wound down, he pulled me aside for a private word. "I heard something today that you should know about," he said, his typically jovial expression serious. "Ryan's been meeting with investors, trying to raise capital for a new venture, something in direct competition with both Stellar and Horizon." The news wasn't entirely surprising. Ryan would need to rebuild professionally to have any hope of financial recovery, but the timing raised red flags. "What kind of venture?" I asked, accepting the sparkling water Marcus offered in lieu of champagne. "Details are vague, but it appears to be a marketing platform leveraging artificial intelligence. Supposedly revolutionary." Marcus looked skeptical. The concerning part is that he's using his knowledge of both companies' client bases and strategies in his pitch to investors. I frowned, mentally reviewing the non-compete clauses that had been standard in Horizon's executive contracts. That's likely violating several agreements. "Almost certainly," Marcus agreed. "But legal violations haven't exactly deterred him lately, have they?" It was a fair point. Ryan had already demonstrated his willingness to cross ethical and legal boundaries when cornered. This new development suggested he was planning not just to recover, but to position himself as a direct threat to both companies. "I should warn Victoria," I mused, already composing the message in my head. Marcus nodded. "Absolutely. But Olivia? Be careful about getting pulled into his orbit again, even adversarially. You've worked too hard to build this new path." His concern touched me deeply. "I will. This is just business intelligence, nothing personal." But as I drove home that evening, I couldn't help wondering if that distinction was sustainable. With Ryan, the personal and professional had always been inextricably intertwined. If he was targeting both Stellar and Horizon with his new venture, was it purely business strategy? Or was it also a calculated attempt to undermine the companies that now represented my professional support system? The question lingered as I prepared for my first official day as Horizon's Chief Strategy Officer. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a tailored maternity dress in deep blue that conveyed both professionalism and confidence, paired with comfortable but elegant flats. At 8.5 months pregnant, practical considerations outweighed fashion, but I still wanted to make a strong first impression on the team I would be leading. My father insisted on driving me, citing concerns about Ryan potentially following me. "Just until things settle down," he said, brooking no argument as he helped me into his car. "Humor your old man's protective instincts." I relented, secretly, grateful for his concern. As we approached Horizon's headquarters, however, an unexpected sight greeted us. Ryan, standing near the main entrance, apparently waiting. My father tensed, hands tightening on the steering wheel. "Want me to drive past? Come back when he's gone?" I considered it briefly, then shook my head. "No, I'm not hiding from him. Not today." "Olivia," my father began, worry evident in his voice. "It's okay, Dad. The security team is expecting me, and we're in a public place with plenty of witnesses." I squeezed his hand reassuringly. "Besides, this confrontation is inevitable. Better here than somewhere private." He nodded, reluctantly, pulling up to the curb a few yards from where Ryan stood. "I'll wait right here until you're safely inside." Taking a deep breath, I exited the car, straightening to my full height, despite the ungainly weight of my pregnancy. Ryan's eyes widened slightly as he took in my appearance. Perhaps my advanced pregnancy was more real to him seeing it in person, or perhaps he was surprised by the confidence I projected despite his attempted intimidation. "Olivia," he greeted me, his tone carefully neutral. "You're looking, well, Ryan," I acknowledged with a brief nod, continuing toward the entrance without breaking stride. "If you'll excuse me, I have a meeting to attend." He fell into step beside me, close enough to speak privately but not so close as to appear threatening to observers. "I thought we should talk before your first day. Clear the air." "There's nothing to discuss," I replied evenly. "Our divorce is finalized, and any matters regarding Lily will be handled through our respective attorneys." Ryan's jaw tightened at the mention of our daughter. "That's her name? Lily?" The question, unexpectedly personal after weeks of legal maneuvers, caught me off guard. "Yes." "It's pretty," he conceded, then immediately pivoted back to business. "I assume Victoria's told you about my new venture." So that was his real purpose. Not parental interest, but corporate intelligence. "Your attempts to compete with both Horizon and Stellar?" "Yes, it's come up." We reached the entrance, where a security guard had already noticed our interaction and moved to intercept. Ryan paused, aware he couldn't follow me inside without proper clearance. "This isn't personal, Olivia," he said, lowering his voice. "It's just business. I have to rebuild somehow." I turned to face him fully, one hand resting protectively on my belly. "If that were true, you wouldn't be pursuing paternity rights for a child you explicitly rejected. You wouldn't be following me, watching me, trying to unsettle me. So please, Ryan, don't insult my intelligence by claiming this isn't personal." For a moment, his carefully constructed facade cracked, revealing the anger and frustration beneath. "You did this to me. You and Victoria. You destroyed everything I built." "No, Ryan," I replied calmly. "You did this to yourself. Every step of the way, from rejecting our child to compromising user privacy to attempting corporate espionage, those were your choices, not mine." The security guard approached, positioning himself subtly between us. "Ms. Chen, may I escort you inside?" Ryan's eyes darted between us, registering the guard's protective stance and the respect with which he addressed me. Understanding dawned in his expression. Not just that I was entering the building as an executive, but that I had allies and resources he hadn't anticipated. "This discussion isn't over," he said, but his tone lacked conviction. "Yes, it is," I corrected him gently. "Goodbye, Ryan." As the security guard led me into the building, I resisted the urge to look back. Whatever game Ryan was playing, whatever revenge he was plotting, it belonged to the past. My focus needed to be forward, on Horizon's rebuilding, on Lily's imminent arrival, on the future I was crafting for us both. Victoria greeted me in the lobby, her sharp eyes taking in my composed expression. "I see you encountered our former CEO. Are you all right?" "Perfectly fine," I assured her, surprising myself with the truth of that statement. He was testing boundaries. I clarified them. She nodded approvingly. "Good. Now, shall we introduce Horizon's new Chief Strategy Officer to her team?" As we stepped into the elevator that would carry us to the executive floor, the same floor, where Ryan had once ruled unchallenged, I felt Lily kick vigorously as if celebrating this moment of triumph with me. "Ready for this?" Victoria asked, her finger poised over the button. I straightened my shoulders, feeling the weight of responsibility and opportunity in equal measure. Absolutely. The elevator doors closed on my old life and opened onto the new one, a life where I wasn't Ryan's discarded wife, but a leader in my own right. A life where Lily wouldn't be a career liability, but my greatest motivation to succeed ethically and authentically. A life where, against all odds and expectations, I had become exactly what Ryan feared most: his successor, his better, and ultimately, his boss. The executive floor of Horizon Technologies buzzed with anticipation as I made my way to the boardroom. At 38 weeks pregnant, my movements had slowed considerably, but my determination hadn't wavered. Today's strategy presentation would cement the new direction for a company still reeling from scandal and leadership upheaval. "The board members are already seated," Megan informed me, falling into step beside me with a tablet clutched to her chest. "Victoria just texted that she's running 5 minutes behind." I nodded. making a minor adjustment to my carefully selected outfit, a tailored maternity dress in deep navy that conveyed authority while accommodating my very pregnant frame. How's the market reacting to this morning's announcement about the privacy protection rollout? Better than expected, Megan replied, her expression brightening. Stock's up 3 points already. The tech blogs are calling it a decisive move to restore user trust. Your transparency approach is working. Pride flickered through me, not just professional satisfaction, but deeper vindication. When Ryan had discovered my pregnancy, he'd claimed a child would derail my career and limit my effectiveness. Now here I was, heading a major presentation to Horizon's board while nearly full term, successfully implementing strategies that were salvaging the company he'd nearly destroyed. As we approached the boardroom doors, a sharp contraction seized me, more intense than the Braxton Hicks I'd been experiencing for weeks. I paused, one hand braced against the wall, breathing through the discomfort. Megan's eyes widened. "Olivia? Are you okay?" "Fine," I assured her once the pain subsided. "Just practice contractions. Dr. Morris says they can intensify in the final weeks." She looked skeptical. "Maybe we should reschedule. The board would understand." "Absolutely not," I replied firmly. "This presentation has been planned for weeks. Besides, first babies are almost always late. I have plenty of time." Before Megan could object further, Victoria Palmer rounded the corner, impeccable as always in a tailored suit that exuded authority. Her shrewd eyes assessed me immediately. "Contractions?" she asked bluntly. I blinked, surprised by her perception. "How did you know?" A small, knowing smile crossed her face. "I delivered my quarterly projections to the Tokyo office during early labor with my second child. I recognized the look." She glanced at her watch. "How frequent?" "Just one," I admitted. "Probably nothing." Victoria nodded, apparently satisfied. "Let's proceed then. But Megan, be prepared to call for my driver if necessary." She turned to me, her expression softening slightly. "Remarkable achievements can happen in the delivery room as well as the boardroom, Olivia. Don't sacrifice one unnecessarily for the other." With that gentle admonishment, she pushed open the boardroom doors, and we entered together. The presentation proceeded smoothly. Despite another contraction midway through, I powered through it, maintaining my composure as I outlined the comprehensive strategy for Horizon's ethical renaissance. Stronger privacy protections, transparent user agreements, and a complete overhaul of the corporate culture that had enabled Ryan's questionable decisions. "What we're proposing isn't just damage control," I explained, making eye contact with each board member. "It's a fundamental reimagining of how technology companies can balance innovation with user trust. Horizon has the opportunity to become the industry standard for ethical data management." Questions followed, probing and sometimes skeptical, but I had anticipated every concern. By the time Victoria called for a vote on the proposed strategy, the energy in the room had shifted from cautious evaluation to genuine enthusiasm. "Motion carried unanimously," she announced as the final vote was tallied. "Congratulations, Olivia. The board formally endorses your vision for Horizon's future." As the meeting adjourned, another contraction gripped me, definitely stronger than before. I masked my discomfort, exchanging handshakes and accepting congratulations from board members filing out of the room. When only Victoria, Megan, and I remained, I finally allowed myself to wince, one hand supporting my lower back. "That's 3 in the last hour," Victoria observed, her tone matter of fact. "You're in labor." "It's probably false labor," I countered, though with less conviction. "My due date is still 2 weeks away." Megan looked between us, concern etched on her face. "Should I call your doctor?" I started to dismiss the suggestion, then reconsidered as another wave of pain began building. Maybe that would be prudent, just to check in. While Megan made the call, Victoria guided me to a chair, her normally businesslike demeanor softening. The first lesson of both leadership and motherhood is knowing when to listen to your body's signals, she said quietly. Your strategy has been approved. The work will be here when you return. Dr. Morris's nurse instructed me to come to the hospital for evaluation, especially given that I was still 2 weeks from my due date. Victoria immediately arranged for her driver to take me, brushing aside my protests about completing the day's meetings. Megan can handle the follow-up, she said firmly. This is why we built a strong team structure, so no single person becomes indispensable, not even the chief strategy officer. As I gathered my things, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unfamiliar number. The content, however, was immediately recognizable as Ryan's doing. Congratulations on your board victory. Neptune Technologies would still like to discuss licensing opportunities for the privacy algorithms, legal channels moving slowly. Perhaps we could expedite with a direct conversation, neutral location of your choosing. Anger flared bright and hot. Even now, with everything that had transpired, Ryan was still attempting to manipulate the situation to his advantage, using my professional achievement as an opening to push his agenda. Problem? Victoria inquired, noting my expression. I handed her my phone wordlessly. Her eyes narrowed as she read the message, her mouth pressing into a thin line. Persistent, isn't he? She remarked, returning the phone. How would you like to handle this? I considered the question carefully, conscious that my response would set the tone for future interactions. Officially, through legal channels. Only. The algorithms belong to Horizon, not to me personally. Any licensing discussions would require board approval and proper valuation. Victoria nodded approvingly. And unofficially? Block the number, I said simply. I have more important matters to focus on today. As if in agreement, another contraction began. Definitely stronger than the previous ones. Victoria noticed immediately and signaled to Megan, who was just returning from arranging the car. Hospital, Victoria directed. Now. The next few hours passed in a blur of monitoring equipment, medical assessments, and increasing discomfort. Dr. Morris confirmed what Victoria had intuited. I was indeed in early labor, though not progressing rapidly. First babies typically take their time, she explained, reviewing the contraction monitor. Given that you're still 2 weeks early, we'll want to monitor you closely, but there's no cause for concern at this point. Everything looks healthy. My parents arrived shortly after, having been notified by Megan. My mother's face was a mixture of excitement and worry as she rushed to my bedside. Olivia, sweetheart. We came as soon as we heard. She took my hand, squeezing it tightly. How are you feeling? Like I'm having a baby in the middle of a workday, I replied wryly, managing a smile despite another contraction building. So, unscheduled but coping. My father chuckled, setting down the hospital bag they'd brought from home. Some things refuse to conform to appointment calendars, even executives in training. As evening approached, my labor intensified. The contractions grew stronger and closer together, each one requiring deeper focus and breathing techniques. My mother stayed by my side, offering comfort and encouragement, while my father alternated between supportive presence and anxious pacing. During a brief lull between contractions, a nurse appeared with an unexpected message. Ms. Chen, there's a Ryan Walsh in the waiting area. He's asking about your condition. She looked uncomfortable, clearly sensing the tension that immediately filled the room. Hospital policy prevents us from sharing information without your consent, of course. Shock rippled through me. How had Ryan even known I was here? And what possible reason could he have for appearing now, after months of legal maneuvers and emotional distance? My father's expression darkened. Tell him to leave immediately, or I'll have security remove him. Wait, I said, placing a restraining hand on my father's arm. How did he seem? Agitated? Aggressive? The nurse considered this. Actually, he seemed concerned, maybe even worried. Said he heard you were in labor and wanted to make sure everything was all right. The information made little sense given our recent interactions. Ryan had made it abundantly clear that he viewed our child as an inconvenience at best, a bargaining chip at worst. This apparent concern seemed completely out of character. Did he say how he found out I was here? I asked, wincing as another contraction began building. Apparently someone from Horizon called him, the nurse replied. That's all he mentioned. My mind immediately went to Megan. Had she contacted Ryan? But that made no sense given her loyalty these past months. More likely, information had leaked through the company grapevine, perhaps reaching someone still sympathetic to the former CEO. As the contraction peaked, I made my decision. Tell him I'm progressing normally, the baby is healthy, and I appreciate his concern. The pain intensified, momentarily stealing my breath. But I don't want visitors outside immediate family at this time. After the nurse departed, my mother looked at me questioningly. That was generous of you, considering everything he's put you through. I leaned back against the pillows, exhausted from the contraction. It costs nothing to be civil. Besides, whatever game he's playing, engaging only gives him power. Hours passed in the timeless rhythm of labor. By midnight, Dr. Morris confirmed I had entered active labor, though delivery was likely still several hours away. The pain had intensified beyond anything I'd anticipated, each contraction requiring every ounce of my concentration and strength. During a particularly difficult moment, as I gripped my mother's hand through waves of seemingly endless pain, the thought flashed through my mind. This is what Ryan walked away from. Not just parenthood, but this profound physical ordeal that transforms a woman forever. He'd abandoned me to face this alone, dismissing our child as an inconvenience to his career ambitions. Yet here I was, enduring what generations of women had endured before me, finding reserves of strength I hadn't known I possessed. If I could do this, bring a new life into the world through sheer determination and physical courage, then surely I could handle whatever challenges awaited me professionally as well. You're doing beautifully, Olivia, Dr. Morris encouraged during an examination. The baby is in perfect position, and you're making steady progress. By dawn, the contractions had reached their peak intensity, coming in relentless waves that left me trembling and exhausted between them. The coaching from the delivery team became more urgent, more focused, as Lily's arrival drew nearer. One more big push, Dr. Morris directed, her voice calm but commanding. She's almost here. Gathering my remaining strength, I bore down with everything I had, a primal sound escaping my throat as Lily finally entered the world. Her first cry, strong, indignant, unmistakably alive, broke through the haze of exhaustion like sunrise after the longest night. She's perfect, Dr. Morris announced, placing my daughter on my chest. Congratulations, Olivia. Looking down at Lily's tiny face, eyes screwed shut, mouth open in continued protest at her abrupt arrival, I felt a love so overwhelming it seemed to physically expand my chest. This was what Ryan had rejected, what he had deemed less important than quarterly projections and market share. This miracle. Hello, little one, I whispered, tears streaming freely down my face. We did it, together. My parents crowded close, their joy palpable as they welcomed their first grandchild. In that sacred moment, professional achievements and corporate politics faded into insignificance. Nothing. Not the board approval, not the executive position, not the vindication against Ryan's dismissal, compared to the triumph of bringing Lily safely into the world. The next few days passed in a newborn haze of feeding schedules, diaper changes, and brief bursts of sleep. I remained in the hospital longer than anticipated due to Lily's slightly early arrival, giving us time to establish breastfeeding and monitoring her development. On our third morning, as I sat by the window cradling Lily during a feeding, a soft knock at the door interrupted the peaceful moment. Expecting a nurse, I called out permission to enter. Instead, Victoria Palmer stepped into the room, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. In her arms was not the expected flower arrangement, but a beautifully carved wooden music box. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said, her typically authoritative voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. "I wanted to meet the newest member of the Horizon extended family." "Not intruding at all," I assured her, genuinely pleased by her visit. "Come meet Lily." Victoria approached, setting the music box on the bedside table before peering down at the nursing infant. Something in her expression softened, a glimpse of the woman beneath the corporate powerhouse. "She's exquisite," Victoria said quietly. "Strong features, determined expression even while eating. She'll be a force to reckon with." I smiled, recognizing the truth in her assessment. Even at 3 days old, Lily demonstrated a clear personality, persistent, observant, and entirely uncompromising about her needs. "The music box is for her," Victoria explained, opening it to reveal a delicately crafted mechanism that played Brahms' lullaby. "A tradition in my family. I received one when my first was born. It still sits on her dresser, 25 years later." The personal gift touched me deeply. "Thank you, Victoria. It's perfect." She settled into the visitor's chair, her posture relaxed in a way I'd never seen in professional settings. "I've spoken with the board. Your maternity leave is fully approved, with no pressure to check in before you're ready. 3 months minimum." "And the strategy implementation?" I asked, mother and executive in equal measure. Victoria smiled, knowingly. "In capable hands. Megan is executing your plan with remarkable efficiency. The team you assembled is performing exactly as you designed." Relief and pride mingled at this news. The infrastructure I'd built could function without my constant presence, a testament to effective leadership rather than individual indispensability. "There's one more thing you should know," Victoria added, her expression turning more serious. "Ryan Walsh has withdrawn his paternity claims, formally and completely." The news struck me with unexpected force. "When? Why?" "The paperwork was filed yesterday." "As for why?" She shrugged elegantly. "His attorney indicated it was after careful consideration of what would truly serve the child's best interests." I looked down at Lily, now sleeping peacefully at my breast, unaware of the complicated history surrounding her existence. "Did he provide any explanation beyond legal language?" "Only a personal note addressed to you." Victoria reached into her handbag, withdrawing a sealed envelope. I offered to deliver it along with the formal notification. I accepted the envelope with mixed emotions, unsure whether I wanted to read Ryan's words, whatever they might be. Victoria, sensing my hesitation, stood gracefully. "I should let you rest. But before I go, the board asked me to share one more piece of news." Her tone shifted subtly, returning to the professional register I was more familiar with. "Upon your return from maternity leave, should you accept, they would like to offer you the position of Chief Executive Officer, permanently." Though not entirely unexpected given the trajectory Victoria had been setting, the offer still took my breath away. "CEO? But what about your interim position?" "My work at Horizon is nearly complete," she said simply. "The crisis is managed. The transition plan in place. What Horizon needs now is consistent, ethical leadership for the rebuilding phase, something you've demonstrated an extraordinary capacity for." I glanced down at Lily, then back at Victoria. "And they understand. I'm coming back with a newborn, the demands on my time, the balance I'll need to maintain. They understand that the old model of CEOs sacrificing everything for the company is outdated and ultimately counterproductive," Victoria confirmed. Your family commitments aren't seen as a liability, Olivia. They're recognized as a strength, a grounding influence that informs your ethical compass and long-term thinking. The contrast with Ryan's perspective couldn't have been more stark. Where he had seen motherhood as a career death sentence, Horizon's board saw it as an asset to my leadership. "I'm honored," I said finally, "and tentatively accepting, pending discussion of specific terms once I've had more than 3 consecutive hours of sleep." Victoria laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "A perfectly reasonable condition. We'll talk details when you're ready." She moved toward the door, then paused. "You've done something remarkable here, Olivia. Not just professionally, but personally. You refuse to accept the false choice between motherhood and career advancement. In doing so, you've created a new model for what leadership can look like." After she left, I sat for several minutes simply watching Lily sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. The envelope from Ryan remained unopened in my lap, its contents both intriguing and potentially unsettling. Finally, shifting Lily carefully to my shoulder, I broke the seal and withdrew a single sheet of paper covered in Ryan's distinctive handwriting. "Olivia, I'm not good at admissions of failure. You know this better than anyone. But watching you, being taken to the ambulance that day, clearly in labor with our child, forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths. I was wrong. About everything. When you told me about the pregnancy, I saw only how it would complicate my life, my ambitions. I never considered what it meant to you, or what it would mean to be responsible for another human being. I was selfish and short-sighted. Seeing you that day, in pain yet completely focused on protecting our daughter, made me realize I don't have what it takes to be a father. Not yet, maybe not ever. A parent puts their child before themselves, and I've never put anyone ahead of my own interests. I'm withdrawing all paternity claims not as a negotiating tactic, but because Lily deserves better than what I can offer her. You were always the stronger one, the wiser one. I see that clearly now. I have one request, which you're under no obligation to grant. A photo, once a year. No contact required. Just to know that she's well. My attorney can facilitate if you're willing. This isn't a plea for forgiveness or reconciliation. Some bridges can't be rebuilt, but I wanted you to know that in my own inadequate way, I'm trying to do the right thing for once. Ryan. I read the letter twice, tears welling unexpectedly. There was no manipulation here, no business angle, just raw honesty from a man finally confronting his limitations. It wasn't redemption, but it was perhaps the closest thing to genuine growth Ryan had demonstrated in our entire relationship. "What do you think, Lily?" I whispered to my sleeping daughter. "Should we send him a picture once a year?" She stirred slightly, her tiny brow furrowing before relaxing again into peaceful sleep. Not an answer, but a reminder that decisions regarding her future were now my responsibility. A responsibility I took more seriously than any corporate title or professional achievement. I decided to set the question aside for now. There would be time enough to determine what role, if any, Ryan should have in Lily's life. For the present, my focus needed to be on recovering from birth, bonding with my daughter, and preparing for the new chapter that awaited us both. My parents arrived shortly after Victoria's departure, bringing home-cooked food and fresh clothes for my eventual discharge. My mother took Lily from my arms, cooing softly to her granddaughter while my father set up the portable bassinet the hospital provided for family visits. "Any news from the office?" my father asked, knowing that despite my physical absence, my mind still frequently turned to Horizon's ongoing transformation. "Actually, yes," I said, watching his expression carefully. "The board has offered me the CEO position when I return from maternity leave." His eyes widened, genuine pride lighting his features. "Olivia, that's wonderful. Chief Executive Officer, at your age, with their history. It's extraordinary." "And with a newborn," my mother added, looking up from Lily with a mixture of pride and concern. "That's going to be challenging, sweetheart." "I know," I acknowledged, having already begun mentally mapping the logistics. "But Horizon is committed to making it work. Flexible hours, a nursery space near my office, support staff specifically to help balance the demands." My father looked thoughtful. "When you left Ryan and told us you were pregnant, I worried about your future. Not because I doubted your abilities, but because I know how this world can be for women trying to balance family and career." His eyes met mine, warm with admiration. "I should have known you'd find a way to rewrite the rules instead of simply playing by them." His faith in me, unwavering even when the path ahead had seemed impossibly difficult, brought fresh tears to my eyes. "I had good examples," I said softly. "You and Mom never made me feel I had to choose between ambition and family values." My mother smiled, gently rocking Lily. "That's because they're not opposing forces, despite what some would have you believe. The same compassion that makes you a good daughter and will make you an incredible mother also makes you the kind of leader people willingly follow." 3 days later, we were cleared to leave the hospital. As the nurse wheeled me toward the exit, Lily secured in her car seat on my lap, I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Excitement to begin our life together at home, nervousness about managing without the hospital's support, and a surprising flicker of anticipation about eventually returning to Horizon in my new capacity. My father pulled the car around, helping the nurse transfer us carefully into the back seat. As we drove away from the hospital, I gazed down at Lily's sleeping face, marveling at how completely one tiny person had rearranged my priorities and perspectives. The next few weeks passed in a blur of adjustment to new parenthood. Sleepless. Nights blended into days structured entirely around Lily's needs. My parents provided invaluable support, but I insisted on handling the night feedings myself, using those quiet, intimate moments to bond with my daughter and reflect on the journey that had brought us here. During one such middle-of-the-night session, as Lily nursed and I gazed out at the moonlit garden, my phone buzzed with an email notification. Normally, I wouldn't check work communications at 3 a.m., but the sender, Megan, and subject line, "Urgent Neptune Technologies" caught my attention. The message was brief but significant. "Neptune's investors have pulled out following failed security audit. Ryan's attempting to salvage with emergency funding round, but industry sources say bankruptcy filing imminent. Thought you should know before it hits the news tomorrow." I read the email twice, trying to identify my own reaction. There was no satisfaction in Ryan's business failure, no vindictive pleasure in watching his latest venture collapse. Instead, I felt a complex mixture of sadness for what might have been if he'd made different choices, and relief that this chapter appeared to be closing definitively. "Your father made his choices, little one," I whispered to Lily as she drifted back to sleep at my breast. "And I made mine." Sometimes the hardest decisions lead us exactly where we're meant to be. 6 weeks into maternity leave, I began easing back into professional engagement, not returning to the office full-time, but participating in key strategic discussions remotely while Lily napped or played nearby. Victoria had established weekly video conferences to keep me apprised of major developments and prepare for my eventual return as CEO. "The privacy-centered rebranding is exceeding projections," she reported during one such call, satisfaction evident in her tone. "User trust metrics are up 17%, and we've received positive coverage in every major tech publication." "And the Neptune situation?" I asked, adjusting my laptop camera as Lily stirred in her nearby bassinet. Victoria's expression turned thoughtful. "Filed for Chapter 11 last week, as expected. Ryan's apparently left the country, Costa Rica, according to our sources. Seems he's taking a sabbatical to reassess his priorities." The news was surprising, but not entirely shocking. Ryan had always fantasized about tropical escapes during particularly stressful periods in our marriage. That he would actually follow through in the wake of professional failure suggested a level of disengagement from responsibilities I hadn't anticipated. What about his legal obligations? The terms of his plea deal with the federal prosecutors, I asked, concerned about potential complications if Ryan had fled jurisdiction. All settled before his departure, apparently, Victoria assured me. Minimal fines, no jail time, in exchange for testimony against several board members who were complicit in the privacy violations. His reputation in the industry is essentially destroyed, but he's legally in the clear. As if sensing the topic of conversation, Lily began fussing. I lifted her from the bassinet, cradling her against my shoulder as I continued the discussion. Victoria smiled at the domestic scene. She's grown since I last saw her. Every day, I confirmed, patting Lily's back gently. She's already outgrown her newborn clothes. The pediatrician says she's thriving. As are you, clearly, Victoria observed. Motherhood suits you, Olivia, as will the CEO office, when you're ready to claim it. When I ended the call, I continued, holding Lily, swaying gently as I contemplated the path ahead. In just 2 months, I would transition formally into Horizon's leadership, becoming not just Ryan's professional successor, but the architect of a fundamentally different corporate culture, one built on transparency, ethical technology practices, and recognition that employees' lives outside work enhanced rather than detracted from their professional contributions. What do you think, Lily? I asked, brushing my lips against her downy head. Ready to help Mommy run a technology company? She responded with a tiny hiccup that somehow seemed like perfect commentary on the absurdity and wonder of our situation. 3 months after Lily's birth, I stood in my closet, contemplating the outfit for my first official day as Horizon's chief executive officer. The clothes I'd worn during pregnancy no longer fit, but my pre-pregnancy wardrobe still felt slightly ambitious. I finally settled on a tailored pantsuit in deep burgundy, professional but comfortable, with subtle adaptations for a body still recovering from childbirth and accommodating breastfeeding schedules. Lily watched from her bouncer seat placed strategically in the doorway, her dark eyes tracking my movements with the intense curiosity that had become her hallmark. At 3 months, she was already showing distinct personality traits: determined, observant, quick to smile, but thoughtful before trusting new people. What do you think, CEO Chen Jr.? I asked, kneeling beside her bouncer. Is Mommy ready to run a multi-million-dollar technology company? She responded with a gummy smile and excited kick of her legs that I chose to interpret as enthusiastic approval. My mother appeared in the doorway, dressed for the day in anticipation of minding Lily while I attended the formal transition ceremony. The car service is here, she announced, bending to tickle Lily's tummy. Are you nervous? I considered the question seriously. Not about the job itself, I admitted, gathering my laptop and presentation materials. I'm prepared for the business challenges. It's the balancing act I'm anxious about, being fully present for Lily while giving Horizon the leadership it needs. Eleanor smiled, lifting Lily from her bouncer with practiced ease. That tension never fully resolves, you know. It just evolves as they grow. But if anyone can navigate it successfully, it's you. I kissed them both goodbye, my mother on the cheek, Lily's downy head, before heading out to the waiting car. The driver, arranged by Horizon's executive services team, greeted me professionally as he held the door. To headquarters, Ms. Chen? Yes, please, I confirmed, settling into the back seat. The main entrance. As we drove through morning traffic, I mentally reviewed the day ahead. The formal announcement ceremony, meetings with key department heads, a scheduled video conference with major shareholders. The schedule was packed but manageable, with strategic breaks built in for pumping breast milk that would be stored for Lily's next day bottles. When we pulled up to Horizon's headquarters, I was surprised to see Victoria waiting on the steps, elegant as always in a tailored suit that exuded quiet authority. I thought we were meeting in the boardroom, I said as I approached, extending my hand in greeting. She clasped it warmly, then unexpectedly pulled me into a brief embrace. We are, but I wanted to mark this moment privately before the official proceedings. Stepping back, she evaluated me with approving eyes. You look ready. I am, I confirmed, surprising myself with the certainty I felt. 3 months ago, standing in this same spot confronting Ryan, I had projected confidence I wasn't entirely sure I possessed. Today, that confidence came from within, earned through challenges overcome and priorities clarified. Victoria smiled, a genuine expression rarely seen in professional settings. Then let's go make history. Horizon's first female CEO, and certainly its first nursing mother in the executive suite. As we walked through the lobby together, Victoria, Palmer, the crisis manager who had steered Horizon through its darkest days, and myself, the unexpected successor preparing to guide its future. Employees stopped to watch, some offering quiet congratulations or respectful nods. In the elevator rising to the executive floor, Victoria turned to me with unexpected candor. When I first met you, after Ryan's downfall, I saw potential in you, raw talent mixed with ethical conviction. But even I didn't anticipate how quickly you would transform both yourself and Horizon's direction. The praise from someone I respected so deeply meant more than any official title or compensation package. I had an excellent mentor, I replied sincerely. You had innate wisdom, Victoria corrected gently. The wisdom to recognize that true success isn't measured by titles or stock options, but by the integrity with which you navigate both professional and personal challenges. As the elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, the same floor where Ryan had once ruled unchallenged, I caught sight of the newly installed nursery space adjacent to the CEO's office. Through the glass partition, I could see the comfortable, rocking chair, changing table, and state-of-the-art monitoring system that would allow me to check on Lily during her visits. This wasn't just accommodation of my needs as a new mother. It was physical representation of Horizon's commitment to a new kind of corporate culture, one that recognized employees as whole people with lives and responsibilities beyond their professional roles. Victoria followed my gaze, nodding with approval. Your first executive decision even before formally taking the role. It sends exactly the right message. We continued toward the boardroom where the transition ceremony would take place. Through the glass walls, I could see the assembled leadership team waiting, Megan among them. Now officially Director of Strategic Initiatives, a position created specifically to implement the ethical reforms I had designed. Before we entered, I paused briefly, taking a moment to appreciate the journey that had brought me here. From that bathroom with the pregnancy test to the executive suite had been neither straight nor easy. There had been heartbreak and betrayal, unexpected allies and surprising strength. But throughout it all, Lily had been my North Star, guiding me toward decisions that honored not just my ambitions, but my values. The tiny life that Ryan had rejected as a career impediment had instead become my greatest motivation to succeed ethically and authentically. Ready? Victoria asked, her hand on the boardroom door. I straightened my shoulders, feeling the weight of responsibility and opportunity in equal measure. Absolutely. As we stepped into the room to applause from the waiting team, I felt a profound sense of rightness, not smug satisfaction at having proven Ryan wrong, but deep conviction that I was exactly where I was meant to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do. The journey from Ryan's discarded wife to Horizon's chief executive had transformed me in ways I was still discovering. I had become not just a mother or an executive, but a woman who refused to accept artificial limitations or false dichotomies about what was possible. And in that refusal, that persistent, determined insistence on creating my own path, I had perhaps given Lily her first and most important lesson. That with courage and integrity, she too could rewrite any rule that tried to diminish her potential. As Victoria formally introduced me as Horizon's new CEO, I accepted the role with gracious confidence, ready to lead not just a company, but a movement toward more humane and ethical technology practices. The challenges ahead were substantial, but so was my capacity to meet them, strengthened by motherhood rather than diminished by it, just as I had always known would be the case. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ryan had abandoned us because he believed a baby would prevent professional excellence. Now, Lily had become integral to my vision of leadership, a daily reminder of why ethical decisions and long-term thinking mattered more than quarterly profits or market domination. In the end, Ryan's greatest fear, that parenthood would fundamentally change our professional trajectories, had proven absolutely correct. But the change hadn't been limitation or diminishment. It had been clarification and purpose, a transformation from success defined by external metrics to success measured by impact and integrity. And that was a definition worth building a future around, for Lily, for myself, and for everyone at Horizon who would now follow where we led. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.